Welcome, everyone, to the Robot Party Jam Postmortems. I appreciate everyone showing up, whether it's just as a presenter or an audience member. These numbers look pretty good. So the first announcement we have, screen share is on permanent load. Permanent load. Unshare. I'm not sharing anything. That's the interesting part. We have to do the intro over now. Yeah, well, the funny thing is I'm not sharing anything. Oh my god, this is... They had a year to figure this out, and... Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay, here we go. Share my screen. Share the schedule. Here we go. Okay, see that. Okay. All right, we're going to start again. Welcome, everyone, to the Robot Party Jam Postmortems. I appreciate everyone showing up here, whether it's just as an audience member or as a presenter. These numbers look good. Appreciate it, everyone. So the first announcement that we have is that we have a surprise addition to the schedule with Zypher squeezing a presentation right after Mimi Moonbeam. So shortly around 4:50 or so. So here's how it's going to work. If it's your turn to speak, you have a presentation coming up, I will invite you up onto the stage, so look out for notifications. That allows you to share your screen and audio. From the start of your presentation, you will have 15 minutes. I will let you know when you're down to a minute left, but if you need additional time reminders, 5 minutes, or whatever you want, just let me know. And when your time is up, be sure to stop sharing your screen before returning to the audience. So, without further ado, I am going to look for Vincent, who's first on the schedule. Haha, invite you up. I'm going to stop streaming myself.
Okay.
I'm going to mute myself.
So, hello everyone after technical issues. So, when I joined last year to do it was my first time creating any sort of game or anything, and it was, what I ended up with was very incomplete and such. So this year I wanted to do better and make sure like I had more of a thing, even though I hadn't done any actual development in the past year, but I felt like I made a lot of progress. So I don't have as much a problem as as much like a presentation as I do just showing things I'm doing. So if we start here, this is my first build that focuses on the gameplay loop. We can grow the beef, we can make a bun, put it in the grill, take the grown beef, put it in the grill, and then it'll make the hamburger just like it does in the final game. There are some minor differences, but a lot of this just works on the same in the back end. Obviously can't do much with a hamburger other than put it in the inventory, but that's just the basics of how everything will work. And so we can see how everything goes. Now, how I had the gameplay loop sorted from the outset. And then I also had the basic stories go in a decent way. So we had the taxis I wanted to do things with, have them as like behind the scenes doing the things. But then we get to my second scene, which is my second build, which is a lot closer to how I want it to go, and it's a lot more interesting. If I go and share that, go to Discord, share, we want this, go live. Okay, so we have tiles, we have things that are similar to how it is. The screen is a little bigger than it was with a more blank space because I changed that size, and that's one of the things that didn't carry over. But we can see things. Notably, we have tiles. We can place the grill, place the field. Then we have my first real cut feature that I changed relatively late in the process, which is the warehouse. The thing here is that I wanted to have a difference between like the seeds or things that you would grow in the field, which still works. Then I wanted to have like all the packaged things be in a separate place, so that you would have to build a spot for them, and then you can place them as we go. You can also see this is where the tile pop-up is. I don't know if you're seeing my cursor or not, but yeah. We can just do that and see how everything works. obviously more bugs like the tile highlights that only got fixed relatively late. But then, so what happened is that the warehouses, I just realized I didn't need them as much as anything else. So I eventually just moved everything over here to the food panel. And part of it's just because we had the other thing, that the much bigger thing were workers. I wanted my original idea behind all this is that everything would go, that everything would get very complex. So I wanted to make it so that you'd have the taxis be the ones who help you move stuff around. Like you could theoretically move something from the warehouse to the grill and you wouldn't have to do all that clicking. But the problem is it didn't really work. So the whole point was building roads, and then you can add a worker. There were some things in Godot, an A-star grid that like got the basics going right, but it actually just never really worked. Like right now I can say like the start and end, and all it'll do is just cause a bunch of debug things to pop up in my console, and nothing really did anything. So eventually I just realized I could abstract the taxis, like say they're behind the scenes moving everything around, because obviously you clicking something doesn't move it right away. And then I just decided that everything would be easier if I didn't focus on getting workers to work. And then, but other than that, like I have other things, builds, but most of that's just trying to get assets in. And that's like the other big difference from last year's project, is that I have it looks a lot better. Like if we go and switch over to like my actual build, there's obviously things missing, but like we have like a background and these little fancy screens that are meant to be like, if we were looking at it, so like we have screens for various things, so it makes it look a lot nice. Then we can also see that there are some more things missing, like this. Obviously workers were the big thing, but we also have this big blank space here. Like that was meant to be like a window, like if you were standing at the counter and then like you'd have the customers come up and you'd see things here. And like some of them, like you'd say like when you ordered the pig sticks, that Jambon would come up because he liked them, for example. That'd be just like the way to show things, or have other random customers come up. And then obviously when the DSD would come, that we just see the dust, and that would make sense otherwise. So I don't know if I have anything else that's really that important to talk about. So if anyone has any questions. Oh, sorry, I forgot to actually show I got to share the thing. Yeah. Got to actually share. Okay, so yeah, I should be sharing this. Sorry about that. Now, as I was saying, like this whole big empty space is just where I was going to have that customer window where you could see different things, but that required more art. And part of it's that I didn't want to design the inside of a restaurant, so that's part of why that's also why my cutscenes don't have any background, which is probably the biggest, like, this is unpolished, that's more noticeable. The fact that the cutscenes are just blank spots. Yeah, like if I just show a cutscene, it's just the default background and things didn't move. Like I even wanted to get like a dialogue box here, but that would require moving stuff, and I just ran out of time and it wasn't a focus. I did start on like one for the behind the restaurant scenes, for like when you're meeting Jambon and he's trying to, and Glary, and they're just trying to help you with stuff, but I couldn't get the perspective right, and that was like a last minute thing, because assets are just the hardest thing to do. So yeah, if I go back, I need to get back to the main menu. So does anyone have any questions? I guess I have a ton of time left, so, or if anyone wants to see anything, like a lot of the stuff I'm proud of most is in the code. And then, yeah. Okay, endless mode. Endless mode was one of the last things I added. It's relatively simple. Like I suppose I could go into the code and show. So I'm gonna share my code screen. Go live here. Yeah, we have, so like we have an endless mode. And then like it just looks the same. So what every game scene has, I am sharing this right, yeah. So yeah, everything, like there's a message queue where things just the messages that show up. That also is used for the cutscenes as well. And then we have an order queue. So what I did for endless mode is I just have a random set of things. I see if I can stretch this out a bit so I can actually see. Come on. Yeah, we have just the resources for each type of thing. So what I do here for endless mode Yeah, I think the order queue if I have it. I don't know where I have all this stuff for endless mode. So what I do is I basically just have it randomize one of the things, and as you complete more orders, it makes it so you can choose from more of these. And then once you get to the end, it goes a little faster. It's a very simple thing, and I wanted to add a couple more of the endless mode of the food items I didn't get to use in the story. Like the probably the closest thing, just based on what assets I had, was like barbecue chips would be simple. You grow a potato, and then you put that in barbecue sauce in the dehydrator, and then it would make more things, and that would be simpler. Okay. So things to add in. Like part of me wants to do more stuff with this, like actually try to make it a full thing. I just don't know if I'm actually going to do it because I want to get things working. It's hard for me to get motivation on a lot of different things. I'm just trying to. I need to get work because there's the thing that kept me pushing along is that I knew I had a deadline for this. While if I'm gonna make something new, I just don't really have as much of a deadline, so it's harder to get things done. Okay, so the UI design. UI wasn't really my strength here, as you might have noticed by the fact that somehow I managed to have a dialog box where it was easier to close the program than it was to close the dialog box, as we saw with Kyle. But as you saw, I did actually move that in like the final build of this. I knew I wanted to just keep stuff around, like put things in various places. Yeah, I knew that I wanted to. There's things like I eventually decided I wanted to put borders or like margins around stuff. Like there's if you look at my grid on the actual like main screen, there's actually like one more grid of things I had placed, but I just got rid of because one, I didn't need it because all the worker stuff didn't exist, and then I just wanted to have more room for things. Yeah, both from the edge of the screen, and then because I wanted to have those little screen borders to make every like element of the UI distinct. Yeah, those screens are one of the more annoying things because things that I know I didn't do right because I have a kludge. So I have like each of those elements are like its own different scene that I just have a bunch of different scenes in the UI class. So like if I look here, so like we got the game UI, and then that has a bunch of different things. But since the backgrounds for each section came relatively late, I just placed them alongside it, so it's a pain in the butt. Yeah, ideally those would obviously go in the actual classes themselves, but instead I just had it so that it didn't work as much. Something easier to do. Yeah. Any other questions and stuff?
Yeah, I'll pop in here. I have to commend you on making such a complex game. It's really, as a coder, I have a hard time wrapping my head around all this stuff. I was just curious
Yeah.
about your thoughts watching Kyle play it for the first time. Like such a complex game for a game jam, and him trying to understand all the mechanics within limited time.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like he got it pretty fast. Yeah, I also watched wujak play it when she was doing all the testing. And worked better. Though I was surprised like how Kyle went to the cookbook right away every single time he didn't realize something, while wujak wanted to try and figure things out without the cookbook. Though technically the cookbook wasn't as quite final form when she was testing it, so that was also part of it. But I was in the chat like saying what the cookbook would have said. Yeah. Like ideally like you shouldn't even need the cookbook at all. My point is to have the dialogue before each level, like give the hints of what you should be doing in each level. Like how I explained how the double cheeseburger, which is probably the most like the weirdest one because you take the hamburger from the grill and put it back on the grill. And that was the one I was worried about, especially since I was in the first level just because of how everything worked. Because I had like a lunch service for my first level, then the breakfast for the second, and then the dinner and dessert for the third. Yeah. But as in for like the complexity in general, my strength is in coding. That's what I went to school for. And I think that might be different because it seems like there's a lot more artists and musicians and stuff in this community than what you might expect for like a game thing. I don't know like what the split is, and that makes it different. And it's also why I want to do more a team up next year. Like, I did everything by myself other than like the public domain art that I used. Games is inspiration. I'm not really sure. Like, I like strategy games and Sims, and I just wanted to build something like that for my game. And the idea of like having it like a unique way to do like a restaurant type of thing is what was mostly my inspiration. Just something that focused on the coding because I didn't need to make a bunch of art or anything, make levels or things. I just needed to make systems, and a lot of it is just making the good systems. Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, we got about a minute and a half.
Yeah, seems like there's one more question.
He's typing.
X is typing. Oh, games is. Yeah, I think I just talked about inspiration. Just that I like Sims and stuff. I don't know if there's anything specific that was an inspiration. Yeah. Yeah, maybe like one more. I don't know how long there's take.
We got a minute.
People. Yeah. The X's typing is just. I mean, how do I feel now it's done? Just a lot of relief because I got things done and just trying to get. Like, it's weird, like trying to push for the end and get everything like to a reasonable sense of polish. That's part of why it's hard for me to want to go back. Like, I want to go back and do more things because I feel like there's a core idea here, especially if I actually got art and an actual thing. But it's just hard trying to get back to it without the stress of a deadline. I mean, I didn't really make that much art. Like, obviously, I had the down taxi I made, and then there's the player character, which was just like kind of a temp thing that I had planned to make something better, but I just never did. And then there were a couple other things, like some of the icons I made myself. Some of them are tweaks on the pixel art I downloaded, while others are just like simple things. Everything was just done in like Paint. Because again, I'm not really an artist. Yeah.
Cool.
I just was trying to find what I had. Yeah, I think we're done then.
Yeah, we're at 15, but I want to thank you so much. And also thank you for dealing with the tech issues.
Yeah. Someone had to be first.
Yeah. Revel in that applause.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you so much, Vincent. Mm-hmm. I'm going to move you back to the audience.
Okay.
I'm going to try this again, Jay. I'm going to try to invite you up. You know, I don't think I can move Vincent to the audience.
Okay, I did not see an invite. So I'm going to send Dana one, who will be presenting with me.
Cool.
It's much easier than I thought it would be.
Let me share the screen over here. Let me get my own time. All right, you ready, Dana?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Wujak. We got decolFuture, aka Dana, here with me. We're half of the team that worked on the Smoke Box Big Birthday Quest. I was the director. Dana was the writer. Will, who did the music, and Marty Fingers, who did the art, could not join us today. But we got some information on their behalf. So I wanted to start off talking about kind of, you know, the planning that went into this. Our game's pretty big, fairly ambitious to do an RPG of that size, and definitely had a lot of things planned and some stuff cut and all of that. Go ahead and start off sharing some of that. So this is the pitch that I had for the team night one, when I was like, I'm going to recruit people, but I want to have a good idea going into it. This is kind of the information I showed them. You can see that some of the stuff definitely made it in as is. Some of the stuff did not. So, you know, combat system down here, done through an ATP system, control the player in real time. That's basically how it worked. Mostly open, goals to defeat the boss, but you can do stuff in any order. Not quite how it worked out, but this is the first pitch of the quick, you know, what a battle screen would look like. Actually had the whole like level planned out from the start, because I really wanted people to know what they were in for and be ready to join in on that and really, I don't know, be able to feel confident working on it like that. So we actually, the first week or so, Will and Learned Fingers were both busy with other obligations. So had a little sit down with Dana where we kind of talked through early plot, early dialogue ideas, fleshing out the way some of the ideas would tie into each other and all of that. I did want to let her talk some about how that initial planning, Dana.
Yeah, let me
and
know
I will
when
try
I'm
to
echoing.
roll some. You sound good to me.
Okay, perfect. So this is like I don't know, like 8th, 9th, 10th jam. I'm not sure anymore. I stopped keeping track. So in terms of plot, wujak and I, we met through a
I'm
mutual
gonna stop
friend,
you right there.
Escaden.
Right there.
Oh, do I have an echo?
Oh. I do not. Oh, it's probably my fault because I am sharing a screen and Dana is coming through my audio too. So let me stop sharing that and I will share just this window. That is my fault. I didn't think Discord shared like that.
Oh, okay.
We can see that now. I'll just throw everything into this window. And if there's other stuff to show, I will reshare. Sorry about that.
Okay, does it echo now? Someone can confirm. Nope. Okay, perfect. All right,
Okay.
I'll just start again. What was I just saying? So this is like my 8th, 9th, 10th jam. Lost track. I've done everything from writing, coding. I've worked mostly with teams, done some jams myself. Sucked. Hated it. Was awful. So when wujak was, pitching the idea, I was like, I need a cozy jam. I just came from doing a horror game. I do mostly horror games. And I'm now in another jam, so I wanted a good rest. So I thought I would do this kind of writing, and I was really intrigued with this game because it's a JRPG. And wujak and I met through a mutual friend, Escaden, and I started watching wujak streams, and she was playing, and I still don't remember which number it is.
Final
It's a
Fantasy
Final
9.
Fantasy game. Final Fantasy 9. I still can't figure out any of the characters yet. But and we just started Kingdom Hearts. I'm also getting that one confused with Final Fantasy. But I was really interested in this gameplay, and wujak was very clear, like, no horror, Dana. We can't, no flesh, no words like spooky or horror. I did get the word flesh in there, actually. I was really proud of that. But this was a good challenge, and it was a good break from these other jams that I was in. And this was just a really relaxing project. So we really talked more about having like levels of dialogue, and we wanted to make it kind of like a seamless story where you just entered into it. And unlike other jams I've done, like I've done a lot of visual novel jams where you really have to have a lot of dialogue. This one was really great because you didn't need a lot of premise. You just kind of needed an itch.io abstract page of like what the heck the game's about. And I really liked writing the different levels of dialogue for leveling up. Like, I love puns. You go from like horror, spooky to like really corny comedy, which meshes well with horror. So this was great. And I'll pass it back to you because I think we're talking about writing later on.
Yeah, so that was kind of us setting the tone, setting the vibe of exactly what needs to go into it. The idea that, like, the initial pitch is like, hey, Squandrix, the villain, working with the actual government agents to do a government plot. And like, Dana, what's the government plot? It's like cannibalism. It's like, no, Dana, what's the thing? She's like, focus groups for health foods. Like, there you go. That's what we wanted. So, through that kind of talking, we kind of figure out the vibes of like what kind of enemies would be around. The manager, the chef, the FBI agent, like that kind of stuff, and what all exactly would go into that. And because of all of that, a lot of planning came out of that. I made a lot of Google Docs for all of the team to kind of make sure that they could all go out and work kind of at a pace that made sense, kind of have an idea of everything that needed to be done and trust them to prioritize themselves. So some of those Google Docs, it's like, this is our character planning document. These are all the party members need to have dialogue for all of these things. The bosses have pre-fight, post-fight dialogue, kind of general vibe of like, hey, the head chef's mostly just annoyed that you're bothering her working, and that kind of stuff. Whereas the agent's like actually trying to stop. Same for art, getting an idea of like, this is every single character that will appear. This is every single animation they will need. rough sizes and all of that. And kind of, I spent probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 days just working on documentation for the team early on. So have this kind of stuff. Same for music. A little bit less on that because it's just like, hey, these are the levels that need music. These are the vibes. And then Will comes back to me. He's like, hey, do you have examples of this? And so I was like, okay, let me go dig through a bunch of, DS games for the music I like Hotel Dusk and The World Ends With You and whatever, kind of like, these are the vibes. And then they were able to knock that out pretty well. But after kind of getting that there and letting the team know what needs to be done from that aspect, it's like, okay, I really want to have a prototype done because Dana, not that experienced with JRPGs in general and asking some questions about hers, like, I really just like to be able to show you and make sure the team all knows what it looks like when we go into it. So this is the earliest recorded gameplay that we had. Just little blobs. You can walk around and talk to people. You can enter into combat. Let me skip forward a little bit. People enter into combat. We got the basic UI, basic stuff showing up, and this was July 15th. So this is like a couple days into the jam at this point of having a very, very base playable prototype. And so a few days later, having it to a bit more of a place where it's like, hey, now we've got some temp characters, people are animating, hit effects are happening, and this is basically like the entirety of what combat is on July 21st, I guess. And then it's a lot of fleshing out from there, a lot of game balance, a lot of art, and that kind of stuff. Definitely a lot of writing came early, so they continued to set the vibes of the game. Some of that has to bounce back and forth because Dana is writing for characters with evolutions that haven't been created yet. Can't do that, but also need to set the vibes before. So we have like these kind of documents with actually like the individual lines that will be spoken when, by which characters, and I kind of set the document up, send it off to Dana. It's like, Dana, go ahead and start filling out some of this, come back to me, we'll talk about it. Hey, actually, this is like way too many puns. We can have puns, but like not every line should be a pun every time and that kind of stuff. So Dana, you want to talk some about how we created this document and kind of plan some of that work?
Yeah, so this was so helpful because a lot of the terms she was using, like AoE, and I remember a lot of the battles, like that first Google document she showed, like I was so clueless, and all my chat messages were like, what is this? What does this mean? And it was so exciting because I knew, like, the games I play, the games I like to make, it doesn't have any of these elements. So every aspect of it, and I'm really good at quickly writing something. So like all these lines were done in like an hour tops. And then wujak was like, too many puns. This sounds too creepy. And then like she kept vetoing a lot of the stuff I would do, and then I'd just rewrite it. And I was so happy with Taxi because I got to write after the evolution. They became like a chrome robot person. And it was great because I got to put in some like creepy, spooky horror lines. And come to find out after feedback from others and then watching Kyle's stream of it, apparently other elements of the story were creepy, like the sandwich or even Squandrick itself. Like, I didn't do the design, but it was perfect. Like the teeth and the smile was perfect for some really creepy writing. And I really enjoyed that. I loved how our team worked with the writing, the art, the sound, and the mechanics. Like wujak was really good at getting the mechanics out really quickly. So we could all, kind of co-design all the different aspects of it. And a lot of the games that wujak was saying, like, oh, I like this kind of music, or, this is what a JRPG is, or, this over here. That was all so helpful and fun, and it made this project feel just so much not like work, but like truly like a fun project to do in my spare time. And we ended up looking at my notes here. Also the secret ending. So I joined this robot party Discord server and everything because of like wujak, Eskadin, and others here. And, this is not my world. So this was so exciting to have this secret ending that I knew nothing about. And so all of these pitches I was writing about the secret George ending, I was like, I don't understand it. Like I tried looking at last year's game. So that was a little challenging, but wujak was amazing and helped me like figure that out. And then the final product of the game. It ended up working so well with what I wrote and the different evolutions of the character. And I feel like I kind of get a lot of the jokes I see now on the Discord server of like Shippy Doos and George. So that was really exciting. Like I really enjoyed how we organized this. And I think going forward for a jam, I would want to do writing like this, like how it's co-designed, but also everyone can kind of see the changes. And we even had a like a quick Discord call when it was like, hey, I just made these changes. Let's just like hop online and figure out, do you like it? Is it too punny? Is it too spooky? And it was really great.
Yeah.
Okay, back to you.
Okay. Yeah. So part of that, the designing all of the characters, part of why this game could come together like it is, like Dana writing all these lines as quickly as she did, is like people not only were able to get things out quickly and iterate when needed, is like people mostly knocked it out of the park from the start. Like we've got, these are the first designs that Learned Fingers sent for some of the characters. Every single one of these base, forms exactly as they appear in the game, right? Evos, most of them too. We had a couple revisions, like originally Frankie and Taxi were both anime references, this being One Piece, the other being Dragon Ball. And I was like, that I like the designs on their own, but I don't know if it makes sense in, having a restaurant make these characters. That would probably be like legal stuff. And it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. What if we diversify the cast a little bit more? And that's why Frankie kind of looks like a shitty moron, and Taxi got to be a cool robot and that kind of stuff. But in working through that art, Learned Fingers had not worked that small before, had not worked on animation stuff very much, and so it became a challenge. And definitely, like, I wanted the most important art to be done by Learned Fingers. I wanted the most visible art to be done by Learned Fingers, but also didn't want every piece of art to have to be done by Learned Fingers. So I took on art for like the backgrounds, the static images like tables and toilets and whatever, and did a little bit of the stuff like for animation stuff. So I did the basic enemies, the like trash can, the slime, that kind of stuff for me. Learned Fingers gave me, let me see if they're in here and easily accessible, but gave me like the keyframes for animations that I then, added to and spruced up. So like, for
Wujak,
did
not
that for you.
sure if you can hear us, but you cut out
Test,
there
test.
for about... Yeah, you're back
Okay.
now.
Am I back? Can you see the screen I am sharing?
It's still loading for me, and we're down to... There we go, it's up again. We're down to about 30 seconds.
Shit, I just done. Okay, then I will try to go fast. But, expanding those out, and then I wanted to talk real quick about testing, because it was actually a lot of balance that needed to happen. Tony did the first test. Before it had a lot of art assets, it took him like over an hour and a half to do. So it was a lot of nerfing characters, a lot of reworking, stuff from testing. That came up where like the pause menu where you can see stats and the ability to like fast travel back home, and just big old nerfs to like the cleanup crew fight was consistently annoying for people and that kind of thing. And the fact that we had everything planned out like we did, as much planning as we did, gave us enough time for testing to be able to make some of those changes and everything, and really get something together that I think ended up working pretty well. And I'm very thankful that so many people liked it, and that my team wasn't so annoyed with me making demands or anything like that. I think we got together a really cool thing. And I guess that's our time, huh?
Yeah, that's it. But
all right. Well,
thank
sorry
you
I
so
rushed through
much.
that.
I had a bunch of questions,
yeah.
but
yeah.
Just
If
to bug you
ask
some
any
other time.
question on the Discord, I'll try to get to all of them. And
that's true. A reminder to everyone, we do have the questionnaire form. If there's questions you wanted to ask that we didn't get to, there's other ways to get them in. Let me just post that, and I'm gonna post that right here so we can see it. Boop, boop. Cool. Well, thank you, both of you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Off stage now.
Yeah, and next on the schedule, we have Gears of Straw by JJM Smith01. Let me see if I can find you in here. Can I invite yet? I truly don't know. Oh, yeah, right. You're the quiet man. My bad. There we go. Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, you can hear us?
I can hear one of you. Yeah.
Well, cool. He'll speak a little bit later in the presentation.
Cool.
All right.
So whenever you're ready,
So
I'll
I'll
mute
just
myself.
share the screen. Okay, just a second. All right. Cool. So if I go full screen, can you see it? No. Okay, I'll do the presentation like this then. All right. So hello everybody. My name is Jordan Smith. I am one half of the Quiet Men. Together, my brother and I, we created the Gears of Straw. So I'll be leading you through the first part of Gears of Straw's Postmortem, and then I'll bring him on a little bit later to talk about the water system. So first on the agenda, I'll talk a little bit about the goals we had in mind. And then I'll move on to the water system with my brother, and then I'll come back for the open world segment to discuss a little bit on how we did that, and finally the Q&A. So the goal for Gears of Straw was to make a game that was unique to whatever character we picked. We were very inspired last year at the really creative games that seemed perfectly fit for the characters that they were representing, and we wanted to tackle something similar this year. So when we saw G.R.A.B, then we thought that this was perfect, because he's a straw man, and we started to get ideas of the straw man argument versus steel man argument, because this was a whole government plot. And with that came the idea of, well, this is a plastic straw, maybe versus paper straws, and he can upgrade to a steel straw, which is, the furthest level of an argument. When you have a really rock-clad, ironclad argument, we call it a steel man argument. So with that, we wanted to tackle G.R.A.B. And then after that, we had to pick between an open world and a linear narrative. Now, I found that it's actually kind of hard for me to design linear games, holding a player's hand step by step, guiding them through this experience is really hard for me. So open world is actually easier to keep these players interested. So then afterwards, we thought, what if the game itself was the government plot from, the Smoke Box? And with that came the idea of these Ubisoft towers. And what if we subverted expectations there? Because a lot of people just know these towers as something that you unlock to further the activities on the map and to reveal them. But what if we, instead of revealing these towers, that was part of the plot to create the chaos in the world? You were creating the problems. So with that, those were the goals we had in mind moving forward. So I'll hand you over now to my brother, and he'll talk about the water system.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jared Smith. I'm the other half of the Quiet Men. My job was to create this water system, make it look good, perform well, and have infinite reach, or as I wrote down, infinite domain, and for it to be interactable so that we can see water on the screen, on the walls, on the floor, and with the car and other objects. So Unreal Engine, thankfully, had a built-in water system that looks quite nice. You may see it on the screen here, but there were some limitations. One is that it was much slower than we were capable of using. And two is that it had this red box that we call the domain. So the way it was simulated was restricted to just being in this domain. So unfortunately, despite how good it looked, we weren't able to just use the built-in water system. So I set out to create my own custom solution to this water system. So water traditionally is made using what they call metaballs. You may see them on the screen right now. This is how Unreal Engine made the water on the previous slide, but it's too expensive for me to actually create. So I had to look for something cheaper. Thank you to Mix and Jam. He tackled this topic as well when he was trying to recreate Splatoon's ink system in Unity. He came up with a screen space solution using image filters. So he first blurred the shapes on the screen, and then he applied a contrast filter to try to really pull back those lights away from the, to bring out the shape of the metaballs and the fluid once again. So you may see it on the screen. It really does a convincing job of emulating the metaball look. So I set out to do that. So you may see these two spheres before you. I blurred them first, and then I took the blur and I did a step function to get it all to be white. And it created a very convincing effect. But it came with a problem. Unfortunately, Mix and Jam never came to this issue because of the way he was doing it, but the screen space effect uses filters and it doesn't respect objects that are in front of it, which would have been a problem for the water system. So to fix this, I sampled the depth of the scene. And what that means is that objects closer to me are darker, objects further away are lighter. And I only applied the filter to anything that was visible to the camera. So if it was blocked, it would not be affected. And thankfully that worked. And I was able to continue working on this water system. So that brings me to other key features of water, reflections and refractions. I noticed when I was working on the depth filter that the black and white of the initial blur kind of reminded me of that, but anything that was close to the camera was white, anything further away was getting darker. So I used some depth to normal techniques and mathematics to try to calculate a normal map from the initial blurring. And you may see that as a second picture there. That is the normal map. And then I use that to calculate the reflections and refractions for the water system. And you may see the final result now. I was quite happy with it. It runs much better. I can have dozens of these systems on the screen at once, and it doesn't tank performance. Also, you can't see it here because it's a very small space, but this water, you may see it in the game, it can go very far. It can really reach a lot of places, which was helpful in the design of the game. And to me, at least, I really like how it looks. The reflections, the color, and I was pretty happy. So with that, I will move back to my brother and he will continue talking about the open world of the game and how he set about doing that.
All right. Yeah. So the open world, like I mentioned before, this was actually chosen because I thought it would be easy. And it's because I can't do linear type of experiences. I figured that I may as well give the player as much freedom as they can get and try to work within that scenario. So within the open world, I needed a few things. I needed it to be expansive. Basically, I needed it to be large enough to be really cool to be in. I needed it to be automated. So I needed a lot of randomization to help make this world come alive. I needed to be easy to navigate because some versions of the early builds were very confusing to go around. Before I settled on this design, it would be hard to get to where you needed to go because the buildings would be too tall or the roads would be too thin. And it needed to keep the player engaged because I didn't want players to be running through a large space for an extended period of time without anything to do. And finally, it needed to be glitched because the dark world or the glitched world was a very important part of the game for us. And we didn't want to have to recreate something completely from scratch for it. So it was important that whatever world the player was playing in, the buildings could easily turn glitched, the world can turn dark, and we could, do the dark world. So I came with a little bit of a slogan. Since it's eco-themed, we went with reduce, reuse, and randomize. So I'll talk a little bit about each one of those, but basically, I wanted to have Spider-Man-like activities with Elden Ring level gatekeeping. So I'll explain that in a sec. So we'll start with reduce. I wanted to make sure we simplified the scope. It's an open world game. We're already biting off more than we could chew. So I wanted to make sure we made it easy on ourselves by buying or creating modular assets. So credit to Simply Town from PolyArt 3D, who created a lot of the modular assets we use to make the town. And with that, we split the town into 3 parts to give players both freedom and this kind of structure. This is similar to how Elden Ring kind of creates the first open area you could go in and then prevents you from getting to the other areas. And they do this over and over, giving you this large open space, but keeping this kind of narrative structure in which you have to do certain events. And this helps them to keep the story going. And so we kind of use a little bit of that. Next is reuse. I created a template for each activity, which included the enemies, and then reused or cloned that template to create the activities. So first we got the enemies, in which you'll see that it raises a water level. And when the water level reaches a certain trigger, they would melt. And so we duplicated that for the flowers. You would water the flowers, and when they reach a certain level, they were fully bloomed, and you would get a coin and the Dark Shippy Doo's glitched NPC. And also with the fire. The car on fire, you out the car, and when it's completely gone, you get the coin. And so we were able to use that to quickly make activities that we could have put throughout the world. And finally, randomized. With that, we randomized the location of these activities so that you, as the player, always had something to do close to you. And, I made sure to put more activities than you needed just to give the player extra choice. And this helped to make it very easy to populate the world with stuff to do without creating more unnecessary work for us. And so that's everything in terms of the open world and the water system. I could take your questions now. All right, how did you come up with the idea to use folder deletion to change the game world? That's wild. I presumed there was a listener. So I was actually making before jumping into the game jam, I was making another game that had it was a map builder. It had a map builder, and so I was working with the file system of Unreal Engine a lot during that. And because of that, I knew how that worked and how to use that system. And so when it came to the game jam and it was a secret government plot, we were bouncing a bunch of ideas around, and I said, well, what if we use this system to make this into a real game, a real government experiment, try to simulate a real government experiment in real life. And if it's a real government experiment made by the real government, then you should be able to defeat them in a real way. And so I decided, because I know how to do this with the file system, will ask the players to delete the servers. And if they delete the servers, then they could tackle the game itself. So that's how we came up with that idea. Everything pretty much worked on build except for creating the folder. So it never created the folder for some reason on Windows, but it would detect the folder. So we just had to create the folder from scratch, insert it in the build before we uploaded it to itch, and then it worked. All right. How does the water inside of Glenny work? Sure, my brother could talk about that.
So I wanted to include it in the presentation, but it would have taken too much time. it was also an interesting challenge to engineer. The way it works is that it will look at the distance of the object or the character, so in this case, G.R.A.B and his body, and how far they are from the bottom of the screen. And then we will subtract how tall the character is to try to get the height of the character in world, and we'll put the water level there. And then we applied an offset as the water went up and down to move the level of the water. And then to get like a wave effect, I just used a sine wave left and a sine wave right to modulate the water. And there's a slight coloration effect where the lower the water gets, it gets a little bit more purple. So I used that to try to just make it look a little better. So that's how we did the water inside of his body.
Cool. And real quick, Balbod, how do you guys approach making the assets for this? Is it all handmade? Because there's a lot of it. So the city was actually, I got an asset pack from PolyArt 3D to make the city, the modular city. But I designed the center console and the kind of dividing asset myself and put it into the world myself. And then I created the G.R.A.B models in Blender and animated them in Mixamo.
All right, that is our time. That was a fantastic presentation. That was
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well done.
It was great to talk to everybody in chat. Thanks for the great questions. Thank you, Mayor. And yeah, I can't wait to see the rest of the presentations. Thanks, everybody.
Cool. Thank you so much. Okay. Alrighty. What if I were to tell you guys that the next game is Smoke Circle and AFB is coming to talk? That would be amazing, but that's not the case, unfortunately. Sorry to raise expectations there. Yeah, this is going to be a presentation by Blepasaur, who unfortunately is not here right now because they got to work. Boo. But they provided a video, and I will be sharing that.
Hello, I'm Blepasaur.
Oop. All right. Stop. Share screen. Yep. Can we see this okay? All right. Let me just turn up the volume a bit. And if you cannot hear it, he speaks right away. Just let me know and I will fix that. Okay, here we go.
Hello, I'm Blepasaur, and I did the sound and music for AFB's Smoke Circle game. And while I don't know a whole lot more about the game than anyone else besides AFB, I thought it'd be fun to share some behind the scenes of what went into making the music for it. And what you're hearing now is the finished main theme that most other tracks were based around. So starting off, AFB sent me a short design doc outlining the basic mechanics and premise of the game. And the musical direction I got was the town theme from Shenmue, themes of smoke, and giving it a American Western type of feel. After playing a first build of the game and seeing the art for most of the characters, I got the idea to try and create the music the same way that I think AFB creates their art, which is very spontaneous and raw. And since I was short on time, my hope was that it would allow me to work faster with less adherence to perfectionism. And these ideas led me to the OST for the old PC game The Neverhood, with music composed by Terry S. Taylor. I wanted to try to create my own version of that soundtrack, with a lot of acoustic instruments and vocalizations. Since the setting was the American South, I wanted to base the music around my acoustic steel string guitar, which I also used to create the percussions. Some other instruments that I wanted to include was a lap steel guitar that I borrowed from a friend, this weird old accordion that I got from a secondhand shop, and my ocarina, which never made it onto a song because it'd been too long since I played it last time and I didn't have time to relearn it. Going forward, I set up a Google Doc to catalog and organize the ideas for the music tracks. This is something I usually do to keep me on track and communicate my progress with the people I'm working with. It's also nice as an overview over the amount of work left to be done. To cut down on mixing time, I wanted to try to capture the sounds as finished as possible during recording. I had this small mini amplifier laying around that produces a very radio-like sound and has a nice crackling distortion to it. I only have one mic to record through, so when recording the vocals, I used my headphones as a microphone by hooking them up into the input jack of my mini amplifier. And you can do this because speakers and microphones are basically the same thing. They both have membranes that either convert or produce sound waves from electrical impulses, or vice versa. So I could talk into the headphones while distorting the signal through the amp and record through my regular microphone into the PC. And this gave the sound even more of a raw character, and all of the lead vocals are recorded this way. To make the bass, I decided to sample my own voice and make a synth out of it. This is best heard in the Smoke song. It took me about an hour to set up, because I hadn't used Reaper's sampler to make a whole instrument before. I recorded a whole 12-tone octave, but ended up only using 4 or 5 of the notes. Looking back, I could have figured out the melody before recording, and got it done in half the time. AFB said that they wanted the themes for the mascots to fade in and out between the main theme, and this wasn't something I had planned from the start. So to make it work, I had to confine the new mascot themes to the same key and tempo as the town theme, while still making them distinct and appropriate for each character. This is something I learned about from the making of Red Dead Redemption 1, where all the in-world game music is in the same tempo and key, basically making up one giant song, and different layers fade in and out depending on the player's actions. I knew we wouldn't have time to implement several different layers of instruments, so I confined myself to just exporting completed tracks. I did this by starting in the same project that the town theme was made in, removing certain elements and adding new ones, as well as rebalancing the mix to focus on different parts of the new song. All 4 tracks are the same length and have the same structure. The game keeps them running on a loop parallel to each other, while fading in and out between them as the player moves between different areas. The main town theme has the slide guitar and the vocals as the main elements. Jambon's theme changes the slide guitar for the accordion. But the slide later makes a return in the choruses to Steve's theme. But here, the guitars have a more lo-fi sound, while the organ plays the lead throughout the rest of the song. Chipp's theme is the most different, with the drums changing to a driving kick beat. The acoustic guitar is swapped out for an electric that plays a shuffled rock riff, trying to emulate the chugging of Chipp's car as he speeds around town. The vocals in the chorus also try to emulate the motor sound as it shifts through different gears. One problem I initially had was writer's block. I don't have too much experience with country music, and even less so writing it, so I was getting in my head about knowing where to start off. I was running low on time, and I knew I just had to start at some point. So I searched online for some basic country chord progressions, and I found that they basically follow the same formula as pop songs, utilizing rudimentary chords and pretty standard progressions. Knowing this helped me relax and let me rely more on my instincts when writing the songs. And I'm aware that they don't sound stereotypically country, but I think they managed to capture that laid-back small-town vibe that we were going for. Given more time, I would have liked to have made variations of the tracks after the player has cleansed the area of smoke, as per AFB's original vision, similar to what happens in Okami. This would give the player a more clear indicator of their progress throughout the game. Another issue I came across was finding the time to record. I usually work late, and this hasn't been a problem before, since I mostly record electrical instruments that don't make a lot of noise directly into the PC. But now, I was playing instruments that could be heard throughout my apartment, into a microphone that was sensitive to noises around me, so I had to make sure to work during the day while I was alone. There are 2 major points I'm taking away from this jam. The first is to always try to prepare as much as you can beforehand, by brushing up on old skills you might need. The second, new ways of working don't come without a learning curve, and might not be faster than your usual method at first. I'd first like to thank AFB for once again letting me work with them. Thank you to MayorMcFrumples and the mod team for organizing the postmortem and the game jam, and thanks to everyone who stuck around and listened. Hello, I'm
Here we go. I was smiling ear to ear for that entire presentation. So since Blep isn't here to take questions, just a reminder, I'm going to post it again. If you want to ask him some questions, here's the Google form. I might have to fill that out myself. All right, cool. So let's revel in that Blepasaurness just for a bit longer before I welcome up egpNoodlez up onto the stage for the Smoke Box. Shabella, you can try. Hey, welcome up.
Hello, is this thing on?
Yes, it is.
Okay, cool.
All right. So I'm going to mute myself, and as soon as you start, I will start the timer.
Alrighty, hopefully I'm sharing my screen.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, let's go. Right, welcome to my presentation on the postmortem for my Game Boy Studio game, Smoke Box. Today I just really wanted to talk about a few things working in GB Studio, basically the timeline development of this project, and what I've learned from working on this one. So I want to go over working in GB Studio again. I know I talked about it last year, but I thought I'd go over again for people who might want to look into it, people who may be looking to make a first game, because GB Studio is quite approachable. It's the reason I chose it. In terms of sprites, generally I used to work with 16 by 16 pixel sprites for human characters. It's quite common to see that for games like Pokemon stuff. For the mascots this time, I wanted to sort of capture more of the original essence, which meant sort of scaling up what I was working with. The process was mostly shrinking down the original artwork, sort of tracing the outlines, and then working out what sort of details I could pick out. The major thing with working with Game Boy sprites is that you have 3 colors to work with, so you need to sort of take that into consideration when coloring your sprites. Going on from color, the way GB Studio colors is within 4x4 tiles. So taking that into consideration with the tree example here on the left, I've circled a pixel of leaf that is too low, so to rectify that we just had to push that up. Background palettes have 4 colors. The 8th color is usually used for the UI text display, so anytime you're displaying text. Sprites have 3 colors. The 4th color is used to denote transparency. It's the way I was able to execute, say, Smoking Steve's transparency on his salt shaker body. What was it, pepper shaker? With the sprites, you can actually apply different palettes to different states. So that's how I was able to get Pitmaster to have a sort of red color for his angry look. But yeah, it means that you can be quite versatile with color in it. In terms of scene construction, I usually work with tiled, and I create the tile sets within Clip Studio Paint. You can see these days it is pretty messy at this point. It needs a serious tidy up. On the right, I wanted to give an example of what happens if you don't say yes to tiled when it realizes that you've updated your tile set. Because if you don't update your references, you'll get a garbled mess and have to recreate. But in terms of planning a scene, on the bottom left, I have the food street, which I've just basically blocked out very simply. And yeah, that's basically the process that I was using to build each scene. Working with GB Studio limitations, I believe each scene has 192 unique 8x8 tiles that you can use. So on the left was the original city hub. It was meant to actually have a tree in the middle that did not pan out. We overloaded that entire scene, so there was meant to be lots of different buildings. I ended up changing a lot of those out for the same style of building. In terms of the sprites I created, that ended up being a problem. Sorry. That ended up being a problem for some scenes. With Frankie's Smoke Box here, we have 90 out of 96 of the unique sprites used. So yeah, I've basically had to cut Frankie slightly in half there to get him to fit. Other things for consideration, originally the tables and chairs were sprites. That caused sprite flickering, so eventually I translated those into a background element. It also meant I could detail them a bit more since I had a fourth color to play with. But yeah, that's mostly with working in G.B Studio. And now I just want to go over the timeline of development, because it's a little bit of a fun story. So when the Robot Party Jam started, I also started a digital marketing bootcamp in real life, and it actually ended up scheduling to start at the start of the Robot Party Jam. They gave us a couple of projects to work with, so I really struggled to try and... do we have phone interference? Yeah, let me see if I can fix that.
It's cleaner now. It came in and went away.
Oh no, my mic is doing that, sorry.
I think you're good.
But,
I think
yeah.
you're good.
It was basically difficult for me to sort of concentrate on the jam. I had a couple of DM projects to work on at the same time. That was also in group capacity. So in about the first 3.5 weeks, all I had prepared was about the 8 mascot sprites, roughed out some scenes. That was it. So yeah, I was kind of in trouble, just like last year. Luckily, I had a bit of a plan. I had a rough outline of what I wanted. I definitely wanted to improve on... So last year I wanted a city hub that I couldn't execute on. I really wanted to execute that this year. I had a sewer level, which was a bit of a problem because that was pretty much all the direction I gave my friend Milo-san, who I collabed with for the music. I said I basically had a city hub and I have a sewer, and that's all I have planned. But he was very accommodating and said, yeah, I can work with that, no worries. And yeah, I also wanted more gameplay, so at least I had a few concrete things I wanted to work out in this next project. In terms of rushing some of the asset creation, some of these sprites are reused things. You can see here we have a couple of our previous Game Jam characters a little bit reskinned here. But yeah, ultimately what helped me finish this project. Firstly, working out exactly what was ferociously hip, and it came to me, nothing was more ferociously hip than a season pass. Disguised as a stamp collection. So now that I finally had an idea of what I was doing, I was getting everything created scene by scene, making assets I need to. My son's workflow is kind of the same as mine, a lot of procrastination, so this is also when I was getting a lot of the music coming in. So I was trying to work out where scenes were going. I had most of the stamp scenes worked out, but couldn't work out Glary and Chipp. So yeah, it was getting to a bit of a crunch. And then I suddenly remembered at this very important, crucial juncture, the Smoke Box is also half of a government research facility. And everything just magically sort of came together. Because, yeah, Milo-san gave me a lot of spooky music, and I was wondering how to utilize that. And now that I had this idea, oh yeah, of course, it's a government research facility, what if we suddenly at the end snip off the stamp collecting, change pace a little bit? And that is one of the many happy accidents that ended up working out for this project. There were many other ones. The toilet scene, I never initially planned for. I was watching one of Wujak's streams, and I was like, oh yeah, Kyle does love toilets, and I never managed to put it in last year. He was very cross with that. I've got to do something about it this year. I am a very... I procrastinate a lot, I'm not gonna lie. But because of that, I end up messing around in music editor. I actually messed around with a song that I was trying to make that did not come out any... Well, it sort of goes like... It was meant to be like a hub theme. When I first translated it into G.B Studio, it was very slow and plodding. It was meant to be a Bok theme. I magically managed to not save, lose a few hours of work, decided to instantly go straight back into it all, and that somehow became the arcade music. Bok logo and sprite. Oh, I didn't put the example in here, that's a shame. So originally the placeholder assets for I use the tiles for the road. There's like a corner assets for the intersections. I put those originally just as a placeholder for the store signs. the little angles and stuff inspired me for thingy, Bok Bok, and for the logo and the sprite, and also for the game store because it kind of looks like a television. So that was a happy accident there. And yeah, just in general, working in GB Studio as a quite a robust program, it means anytime I need to test something, I could just choose that scene, test it, and it wouldn't really mess up the rest of the game. My game was submitted 15 minutes before deadline, no public testing, all me. So it's great that nothing really broke, and I think half of that is a testament to just how good GB Studio is to work with. And conclusions from this project. If I was to take away anything, I would start creating more assets sooner. I slowed down creating sort of sprites and background art because I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do for the scenes. In the future, I think I would just go for it and create stuff because the more you create, like, you eventually get inspired by stuff. Like, for example, the Bok Bok sprite, the Bok Bok logo, that just came from rotating a few tiles and then go, oh, that could be something else. Something I'll probably do more in the future is communication. My collab partner, Milo-san, he's a real-life friend. He has the same style of workflow as me and the same styles of procrastination. This is the reason why he was still submitting music to me right up to the last day, which I was trying to work in. But yeah, it just works out. Like if you know your collab partner, you can bounce off them pretty well. But yeah, I guess that's everything. Thanks for watching this presentation. If you've got any questions, please ask. Otherwise, thank you, MayorMcFrumples and friends, for organizing this.
Cool. Thank you so much. We got 5 minutes, by the way. So while other people are thinking of their questions, I'll ask one. So what was your decision to switch from a open world top-down exploration game to a side-scroll action game?
So initially that was because of wanting to realize more gameplay styles than last year. It was initially just going to be sort of like a mini game thing. You'd go back to the top-down style of gameplay. But then as we got closer towards the end of the project and I was sort of crunching, trying to work out how glary and Chipp sections would go, I realized if we did a sort of full tonal shift, it might work better for the pacing. And sort of like the reveal that, oh, suddenly there's like secret government conspiracy stuff going on. Oh, actually, that's another happy accident. So originally in the brief, in the outline, I had Squandrick as secretly a hero. And in the end, he ended up becoming a thingy, sort of the villain, doing a bit of a Men in Black sort of flashy thingy just to try and change your memories. I just realized that I have chat open.
People are typing. Okay, I got a question. I got a grievance to air. Oh, it took me forever to find the Pitmaster in the arcade. And it was probably my own fault, to be honest. Ultimately, I thought it was pretty clever. Do you want to expound on that at all?
Just basically figuring out where the Pitmaster should be, and then also trying to decorate the arcade. Originally, with just the 8 arcade cabinets, that still took up a lot of sprites. So I was thinking, okay, how else do I fill out an arcade? And I was thinking, okay, you sort of have speckly floors and stuff. So I started filling out that. And then I was just like, oh, hang on, I can hide the Pitmaster in here. Because originally with Steve and Pitmaster, I wasn't really sure how to utilize them. But then once I started hiding Pitmaster, I was thinking, oh, I could link Jambon's quest to that, because that sort of helps me like take out a few people off the equation. Yeah, it's just basically sort of condensing different mission objectives because it was sort of difficult for me to think of a lot of different variations, and then yeah. Let's see. What games would you say inspired you? In terms of Game Boy games, it may be quite a lot of them. So as a kid, I played a heck of a lot of Link's Awakening, a lot of Pokemon Red and Blue, side-scrolly stuff. Oh, I actually really did like Ocean's Robocop 2. That's a pretty jamming soundtrack. But yeah, it was that sort of thing. So if you notice the side-scrolling stuff being a little bit slippery, a little bit odd, yeah, you can blame my obsession with RoboCop 2 for that. How much did you think last year's entry helped? And what do you think you took away from this year's entry for future games? Last year's entry really sort of helps in terms of informing me about like an actual process to follow. It also sort of really helped in terms of like straight away considering colors, because last year I remember when I initially designed the sprites, that was before LKB colored them, and then I was like, oh no, I have to sort of redo the sprites to accommodate for color. This year I had those considerations from the start. In terms of other sort of takeaways other than the assets and communication, I would probably say I just want to do a bit more learning in GB Studios. Traditionally with the Robot Party Jam, I've been trying to do my learning and apply it within the time frame of the jam. But I think for my next project, I'm really going to put some practice in. I've been really inspired by other people's games.
Hey, we got a little less than a minute.
I would like to apologize for the rushed nature of my presentation. I literally finished this presentation before you asked me to come on stage.
Because you're a procrastinator.
Yeah, my habits have not changed.
I think you got a good system going here. It seems to be working out just fine. So keep it up, I'd say.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, otherwise I shall, let's see, I need to stop sharing my screen.
Okay, thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, it's like when you sleep in or you forget to set an alarm before work, and you find that you can get ready for work in about half the time you normally thought, and then you just start setting your alarm clock just a little bit later. Cool. So that was egpNoodlez. And next up, we have Damned If I Do by Subterranean Loser. There we are. Someone might have to invite them up.
Hello. Okay, can you hear me?
Hello. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Okay. I don't know why that took so long to get set up.
Discord. That's why. Okay, I'm gonna mute myself.
Classic Discord stuff. Hey, so I found this mysterious N64 cartridge and then I decompiled the ROM. How hilarious would it be if I did the whole presentation in character like that? I hope that everybody enjoyed all the in-character stuff that I did on the itch.io page. I wrote, or me and Limey Otoko wrote all the like Discord stuff. Tried to be very in character, as though we found a N64 cartridge and decompiled it and everything, and that was our game jam submission, and that the game was actually made in 1998. I'll show a little video. Oh wait, I need to share my screen, huh? Whoops. Sorry, 1 second. Here we go. Can we see this screen?
Yes, we can.
Cool. Okay. I'll maximize this. I made this little trailer and shared it just internally with the team, but I haven't really shared it with anybody else. Just to, I guess, as a refresher as to what the game's all about. and I can talk over it a bit.
Are we supposed to be hearing music or sound right now for the video?
Oh, there should be sound. Do we not hear it?
We're not picking it up.
Okay. I can just talk over it.
Okay.
You'd be hearing just game soundtrack. But yeah, this is Damned If I Do. We had a lot of fun with it. I'm really thankful to. Sorry, I'm hearing the music and it's distracting me. I'm gonna mute it. Really thankful to the rest of the team that put up with all my crazy ideas. It was really ambitious. So shout out to PixelCod, who did all the programming for the Disc 2 section, which you're kind of getting a preview of right here in the video. And as well as some 3D modeling, which was huge because I'm still very much a beginner in Blender.
Uh-oh.
Okay, I don't know.
That's fine. Welcome. I hit pause. So whenever you're
Okay.
ready, you can start again.
Yeah, I'm back. So yeah, shout out to Moosemaid, who did all the concept art and the character design that you're seeing right here on the screen.
Oh, you need to share your screen again.
Oh, gosh, I'm so bad at this. Okay. Yep, that you're seeing on screen, as well as she also did sound effect sourcing and some voice acting for the audio logs that I don't think on the live stream were ever seen, but they were very cool. Laimi Otoko, like I said, did all the narrative work, as well as like a lot of game design stuff for the Disc 2 section of the game. Yokai Blotch did all the music, which is incredible. I loved all the music that we got in the game. And then Ether Penguin did a lot of 3D modeling as well. Let me pull up here. Yeah, so inspirations were, I mean, definitely Control, coming right off the back of a Control playthrough. I definitely wanted to incorporate that kind of like freaky, subtly sinister government experiment kind of vibe to it. I was also inspired by some kind of intentionally creepypasta type media like Catastrophe Crow and Pets Cop, as well as Kanito Pet, which is an actual game that has like creepypasta sort of elements to it. I definitely wanted to have something that you could imagine would be like sort of a like some kind of mythical N64 game that gets a bunch of like YouTubers talking or something, you know? So yeah, we did, like I said, it was very, very ambitious. So we did end up having to cut some stuff. Let me pull up. Oh yeah, so here's a, well, I'll just show the cut. Yeah, we had a cut Smoke Box drive-through in space level that I had sort of started modeling, but it just ended up being that, oh, looks like, okay, whatever. You can kind of see here, there's like a sphere of the Earth. It would be sort of like Mario Kart Rainbow Road, where you can kind of see the Earth way below you and you're up in space. The objective of this level would have been to hop on all the floating cars to get to the drive-through window. And then when you got through the drive-through window, the pitmaster would get angry that you cut the line, and that would initiate the boss fight. Just didn't have time. So we just had the level go straight to the boss fight, which was fine. The boss fight was very fun. Here's the inspiration image that I found for the boss fight concept art. Kind of just some nasty barbecue pit. And then Moose Maid did this incredible concept art piece, which then got turned into the stage. I don't have a better image of it than this one, but yeah. So yeah, here's just some other images that we had. The second level with the mountain was, you're supposed to go through like a cave that was a dinosaur head. Didn't have time for that. Here's just a little sketch of the drive-through level as it was planned. The island mountain level. These were some designs for some different Frankie expressions for like the virtual novel or visual novel sections of the game that we just didn't end up implementing. There was a lot of contention, a lot of debate around whether or not we should put this pig emoji into the game, but we decided to cut it out. Speaking of other Easter eggs in that section, I do have another video that I'll pull up that just sort of shows off, because I know, oh no, what happened? Okay, hold on. One moment. Let me pull that video up. I don't know why it didn't like one second, one moment. How am I on time?
I'll pause you right now. You're at 8 minutes.
Okay, I didn't want to take up this much time, so I will try my best to find this video.
I also say try a different video player.
Oh, good idea. Okay, wait, I found it. Okay, so I do just have it in the other video player, but I think this will work. Okay, back to sharing my screen. Okay, do we see it?
We do. Okay, start.
Okay, cool. So yeah, you sink through the ground of the sort of underground hub area. A fun thing about this, by the way, is that these are always here every time that you go to the hub. And triggering the like fake glitch just it turns off the collision on the floor, and then that's how you get down there. But they're always there, and if you can get past the barriers, which I'm sure you could if you really tried, you could absolutely get down to these computers before you're intentionally able to. But thankfully, during the live stream, it all happened in the order that we wanted. So in the narrative, the DNSD division of the Smoke Box was all about customer surveillance. And so their idea for the game was to create N64 cartridges that had like cameras and microphones in them that could, you know, be secretly spying on you while you play the game. And
Man down.
sorry, hello?
You're back.
That was just another Discord glitch there. Okay, screen sharing. So because of that, I'll just play the video out. We just had like a lot of just like random surveillance-y looking images. I looked up like street cameras and like stuff like that for footage. We did have a little Mucho in here. Mucho the cat right here in this as sort of an Easter egg. And then one more Easter egg because I knew, and I'm bummed that this didn't end up on the live stream, but because I knew Kyle would be playing it, I did put in a little Kyle clip there as though the game was spying on him, even though it really wasn't. Anyway, I think that's about the end. I covered all the cut content and the Easter eggs. So if anyone else has any questions for the next couple of minutes, I can answer them. Oh my gosh, Super Frankie. I do have to show Super Frankie. Sorry. Thanks. Thanks, Lamia Toko. So we did have this was just a funny funny little image. Super Frankie. I'll leave Super Frankie up for the rest of the Q&A. Shabello asks, was Grandpa actually sick or playing possum to get some tasty box? Grandpa Frankie was actually dying. Yeah, sorry. But was definitely like using it. He was milking it to get some pretzels. Oh, the 2 discs. That was sort of an idea that I had right off the bat. I really wanted like you to feel like you were digging around in like a file structure that you weren't supposed to be in for disc 2. Or that was just sort of the original idea that I wanted to get across, and then having a disc 2 with like a virtual desktop seemed like the best way to go about it. And initially I did just want to have like a list of files that were just like text documents, but the rest of the team had all these really cool ideas to come up with like virtual desktops and images and all that. Balbod asks, with 2 different parts of the game and so many people working together, how did you go about making sure everything worked together without too much disconnect? We were in like constant communication for the whole like 4 weeks. We were always like showing off works in progress and giving opinions and ideas and bouncing stuff off each other. And we all pretty much had like a pretty singular vision as to what we wanted it to be like. So it came together. It came together really well in that way.
Yeah, Abopo had a question in there.
Oh, the skateboard tail mechanic. I actually have an image for that. Okay, this was the first drawing I did of Frankie Jr. Can I zoom in at all? Yeah. And you can kind of see my sketch lines here. I originally was just like, okay, we need him to be like really radical, really cool. So I'll draw him holding a skateboard. And then as I was drawing the sketch, I was like, his skateboard is kind of, as he's holding it here, it sort of looks like a beaver tail. What if he just sort of, and you can see where I'm like, you can see my thought process here as in the sketch. I started drawing the skateboard as the tail, and then yeah, that became pretty fully realized. We as soon as I drew that, the rest of the team was like, oh yeah, no, it needs to be a skateboarding game too, and that sort of informed the soundtrack as well. We were like, okay, well then we need to have some like ska. We need to do some like kind of more punky kind of guitar music. LKB says, so you're into... Oh, that wasn't a question. I was really confused by that. Okay.
Big old compliment.
Who did the soundtrack for this one? This one was Yokai Bloch did the soundtrack.
Cool. We got about 15 seconds, people.
Okay. Yeah, I could take one more question maybe. Okay, I'm good. If nobody else has any questions, thanks for having me up here.
Yeah, really
talk about that
nice.
game.
That was fun. Love seeing all those Easter eggs, the Mucho and Kyle in there.
Yeah, there's a ton. I wish I had time to go through all of this. There's like a ton of concept art that I wish I could have gone through. Maybe I'll post some, or I think it was already posted on the Discord, but I'll post some later if anyone wants to see it.
Absolutely.
Just let me know. Okay, bye.
Cool. So stop sharing your screen first.
Oh, yes.
And then you may return to the audience.
Leave this.
Alrighty. Next up, EdwinDamen, you submitted a video, but you're here, so you want to come up on stage? Because next up is the Smoke Box Resurrected. Oh, Discord. Never change. Try to ask to be invited up onto the stage. Yeah, what Jay's saying. What? Oh, there we go.
Here I am.
Hey.
Hi, McFrumples.
Okay.
And chat.
I'm just going to mute myself. Oh. There we go. You're ready.
Okay.
I'm going to mute myself, and as soon as you start your presentation, I'll start the timer.
Do you have the video up, or should I share my own screen?
It's probably easier if you share your own screen.
All right, I have it ready. So, yeah. So last year I ran long with my presentation, and again I have a lot of stuff to show. So it made sense to put it in a 10-minute video. So there should be time for questions afterward. It's a YouTube link, so let's see. Hopefully we don't get any advertisements. Hey everyone, it's me, Edwin, and I made this video to give you a look behind the scenes of the Smoke Box Resurrected. Here we go.
Smoke box, come to the smoke box, smoke box, smoke box. That's where the food rots. Yeah.
The core idea for this game came from the Chuck E. Cheese animatronic mascot from the 70s. Or rather, these animatronics in my local supermarket. They are quite something. And they have pigs too. If you press a button, the puppets start playing a song.
Er was eens een schnitzel. Er was eens een schnitzel. Die had het niet slecht. Nee, die had het niet slecht. Ik kwam in de winkel.
I hope you can understand how this was very inspiring to me. In the story, Smoking Steve wants to keep everything the way it is, including the old song. But Chipp and Frankie want to change things around and come up with a new image for the smoke box. They would slowly convince the other mascots to join them and save the restaurant's future. The gameplay was inspired by Kyle's reluctance to play an auto shooter. I wanted to make a good one of those with a cool twist and interesting boss fights. In games like Vampire Survivors, you shoot in a certain rhythm, and I thought it would be cool to combine that with an actual rhythm game. It would also be a throwback to the rhythm game I made for the Jam in 2022. The initial idea was to make a 10-minute long epic song and you would shoot along with the music. Unfortunately, the actual song making got away from me due to time constraints. I considered asking someone else to make the song, but I never got a good structure that would fit within the game. boss fights would take longer or shorter depending on what the player does, and so the music would have to dynamically respond to what was happening, and it all turned out a bit too ambitious. I tried several other things too, like active shooting, but it was too hard to grasp and visualize. I left Chipp's boombox in there as a hidden unlockable and as a sort of Easter egg of one of the ideas I tried. And of course I left the intro rhythm game in, which I already wrote early on. While it didn't come out the way I originally imagined, it is still an idea that I want to explore later maybe, so don't steal it, please. I got rid of the idea of making a very elaborate song, but I still wanted this game to be a cool audiovisual experience, so instead of music I decided to try and add voice acting to the game. I had my first prototype and script ready about 2 weeks into the jam, and with the extra week I thought it would be feasible. To avoid having to get a full cast, I made G.R.A.B and the Pitmaster silent. And I figured I could do both Frankie and Chipp myself with some voice modulation to make them distinct. I put out a request for 4 voices and I got 5 replies. The 5th one was the Prune, who sent in an audition that I really liked. I asked if she wanted to do Chipp and she nailed it. She went above and beyond and did extra lines and grunts which ended up in the game, and she crushed the vocals on the song.
Food is lit. The venues are based and the drinks legit. That's Smoke Box. That's Smoke Box. The burgers are thick, deliveries big.
It turned out much better than my original idea to do both voices myself, which would have been weird to have 2 characters with this weird accent. I want to thank MayorMcFrumples and Subterranean Loser for providing voices for Smoking Steve and Jambon, even though they were working hard on their own game at the same time. I really appreciate it. MayorMcFrumples came up with some extra lines as well that ended up in the game because I found them funny, like this one.
And it's a birthday party, so smiles, smiles.
Oh boy, whose birthday?
I also want to thank egpNoodlez for their nasty, sinister rendition of Taxi. They added this laugh to the final line, which transitioned perfectly into the end credits, so that was a cool setup.
I expected a great taste.
And last but not least, Both Times did an awesome job with Squandrix's voice, and it was a pleasure to work with, so thank you all so much.
Oh boy!
As you can see, the prototype 2 weeks in didn't have any art. I used the black and white drawings from Kyle that LKB provided, and some sprites from last year's game as placeholders. I had a 2-week summer break in which I did all the art. While I've gotten better at drawing quickly, I still take a lot of time to get everything to around the same level of detail. In the end, I did cut some parts of cutscenes, including a cool dinosaur death animation which I sketched out but never rendered. I also cut talking animations, except for this one. Probably would have been too much work. Every year, I write down the lessons I learned from making the game for my future self and others, possibly. I read them before the start of the game jam to avoid falling into the same traps. But to be honest, I failed at least this one. I probably spent more time than other years, but that's probably also because of the extra week we got. This year I have 3 lessons written down, and they have become more specific as this is my 3rd year now, so here we go. Challenge yourself, it's more fun that way. This year I tried my hand at doing physicsy stuff which I had never done before. I really feel like I've learned a lot and opened up a whole new set of possibilities to explore from doing this. I feel like if I just did a repeat of things I already know, I wouldn't have been able to finish this game out of boredom. Second, if it can happen, it will happen. Well, it was fun to try new stuff, the way the smoke interacted with projectiles. It was more luck than intent sometimes, but it also came with a new set of problems. Turns out, things will break. A thing in Unity is when you add too many hinge joints in a row, like in a cool chain that consists of many tiny parts, there's a small chance one of them can't handle the force that is applied to it, and the whole thing would break. This would happen rarely, but it did happen sometimes. And because a lot of people end up playing these games, I didn't want to leave it up to chance. If it happens once, it will happen again, especially with a large sample size. To fix this particular issue, I applied a bit of structural engineering to solve the problem. At all times, there is a second invisible flying Frankie to divide the weight into two, instead of just one Frankie. But that wasn't enough and it still broke sometimes, so I added these invisible support beams to subdivide it even more. In theory, they could still break, but after adding these, at least it never did on my PC, and I hope it didn't happen on your playthrough. And finally, make every game mechanic overpowered and then tune it down. There are a bunch of weapons in the game, and I wanted all of them to be viable and distinct. The basic starting weapon, the Chipp, is very straightforward. At first you would only get one upgrade for it, the freezing Chipp. But then I added the flamethrower, and I set the damage pretty low, 5 damage per flame, I guess. But it turned out to be the most overpowered thing in the game, so I set it to 1 damage per flame, as low as it would go. But with that, it still did way more damage than any other weapon, but it was fun. This forced me to make the other weapon stronger, and I added an upgrade to double the chips. Larry's static charge was very weak, then I tuned it until you could basically stand at a boss's feet and melt them down in a matter of seconds. Very fun, very viable, but the ideal turned out to be somewhere in the middle. One mistake I made is that Frankie's pretzels are not limited by frame rates, and so on max frame rate you can still do more damage than on low frame rate. But what I learned from this is that to make something viable you have to make it overpowered and fun to use, give players a reason to use it, and then turn it down if necessary. And that's about all I can fit in here, at least I didn't go long this year, hopefully, and so there should be time for questions. Thank you all for watching.
Yeah, we got 5 minutes, so question away.
Also, I couldn't read chat while I was full screen, so if I missed anything, repeat the question.
There's one from Chabello there. Can you see it?
Oh, yeah. I see a lot of potential of expanding this into its own full game. Is this something you would consider, or is it easy for you to move to the next thing? I could see it. I could see it in a bigger project, but what I like about this game jam is if I want to like write a musical number, which is what I envisioned for this, like this 10-minute epic. It's more fun to have like a world that people are already invested in. So like with my first game, the rhythm game, it hit because people knew the characters and you don't have to do all that setup work. So while it would be a good idea, I think it's harder if you don't have that buy-in from an audience. Does that make sense? Let's see, Balbod asks, for the VO, did you give a lot of direction or did you just send the script and everyone nailed it? I think everyone nailed it. I gave some slight direction, like a single line of what I had envisioned for the type of voice. but also I wanted to give that freedom to the people to just do their own thing and interpret it their way, and it all sort of meshed together, even though it was 5 different voices. I had to do some tweaking to get all the levels and the quality and the sound the same, but yeah, it was pretty good. I only asked for like a couple of re-recordings of just a single line and a different emotion, but not too much.
Oh, we lost. Oh, you're back.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Well,
if someone sends me a new invite, I get okay. Well,
I got a
whatever.
quick question for you. So this is your third game jam. Every time
Third.
you create a brand, you're genre hopping constantly.
Yeah.
I'm just curious your thoughts on that. That you're making so many different types of games.
Yeah, because it's a challenge. Like the first lesson that I wrote down is challenge yourself. Is what I learned this year. I will just get bored if I just do the same genre twice in a row or a repeat. I did want to go back to the rhythm game genre, but with a twist. So I don't know. We'll see next year what I do. Maybe it will be a repeat, but I don't think so. It will be a new genre again.
We have time for probably one more question, and then the Quiet Man asks question down there.
What was your inspiration, thought process designing Larry? You look super cool. Let me see. Yeah, I in the video there were some like doodles. They were all on a single page. And what I had in mind is that there's like these eras of character designs that I had in my own head of the 70s characters. I think that's Jambon, Taxi, and Frankie. They all had their creation year. And those were like the animatronics, the first batch of designs. And then for the second batch, so Pitmaster, Glary, who else? I'm blanking, but I wanted them to be more inspired by 80s horror movies because they were from the 80s. So I wanted to link them to their own period, and Glary could be like a weird straw monster.
Cool. And that is our time. I have one request of you, and that's to share that YouTube video of the animatronic creatures in your supermarket. I need to see that again.
It's they have multiple videos, so I can share the whole account. It's from the
Please
supermarket itself. Yeah. All right.
Cool. Thank you so much. Radio. Next up is, oh my God, could it be Project G.R.A.B? Which we have 3 speakers for that. It's LKB, hello, hello, and punkrockglock. Cool. Give me 2 seconds. Real quick, punkrock LKB, do you want to test your microphones?
Check.
Cool.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Cool.
Hello.
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 Okay, we're all set up. Okay, let me set the timer. Hello, so this is Neil, aka MayorMcFrumples, and I'm here to kick off the presentation for Project G.R.A.B. before I hand it off to littlekittenbit and punkrockglock. So first things first, Shout outs to the mighty Project G.R.A.B team. That's Amazovision with art, Ion Watt with art, littlekittenbit doing art, writing, story, coloring, Mads the Great doing art, punkrockglock doing the music and sound design, Ragnarok's Edge doing art, Zoql doing art, wujak, EdwinDamen, Bullets, and Alashir the playtesters, Cyan Coffee and Drac as voice actors, and myself did the art and all the coding. So, when I approached the game jam this year, I had a few goals in mind that I wanted to achieve for myself. And those goals were controller support, playing with sine waves, play with depth, and a stronger collaboration effort. And to those who played the game, you'll know that this game is controller exclusive game, so that was an easy cross off. It wasn't intended to be that way initially, but after we got so deep, it seemed like adding keyboard support was more effort than it was worth. And given so much of the game feel is based around you using the controllers ambidextrously and awkwardly, of course. So, sine waves. Let's cross that one off. Sine waves, if you don't know, are waveforms that fluctuate between 1 and -1. So I use this extensively for a lot of bobbing and idle movement. And so here's Frankie. His dance, for example, is using 2 modified sine waves, one to control his up and down movement, his bounce there, and his left to right movement. Fun stuff. Now, depth. Hold on. We shouldn't be seeing comments. Sorry, guys. What do I mean by depth? Well, GameMaker, while capable of producing 3D elements, natively it's more designed for 2D styled games. However, it is possible to create the illusion of 3D with some art and coding trickery. In my pre-team meeting I had with LKB, here are 3 of the many prototype ideas I pitched that had depth as an element. And just a reminder, like, even though it looks like these are 3D cubes down here, this is all 2D stuff. It's just, and that is Link walking around Resident Evil 2, but he might as well be walking around a postcard. It's all faked. So unfortunately, none of these ideas really stuck. You know, it's no one's fault. They just weren't ready. They just didn't have that pop to them. And I felt like super defeated. And I was like, I'm giving up for the evening. I'm clearing my head. I'm going to go watch a bad movie in hopes I can come up with something fresh. And no exaggeration, in 5 seconds into the opening credits of the movie The Boneyard, I had a vision. I saw 2 hands in front of the player, and those hands could reach out and grab things. I would full screen, but that's going to break things since I'm also recording OBS. So I've got limitations on my end. Sorry about that. So I ran to my notepad and I just sketched it out really quickly. And I was just like it was just, for some reason I was super excited about it. Very next morning, what do? I run to my computer and I quickly hash out this prototype in about 2 hours. What you see here is probably 95% of what I presented. It didn't have the snapback feature at the time, but otherwise it was all there. And when I presented this idea, there was this definite excited sense of, this is it. And ideas just started popping off, which LKB will get to much later. So, how does the 3D actually work when there's no actual 3D? So, a screen has X and Y values, and that will determine where objects are drawn on a screen. So, we can make a few assumptions based on this knowledge. So, we can assume that objects higher up on the screen are usually farther away from the camera, depending on point of view. The first thing we need to do then is establish a background, which sets field of view, the vanishing point, and the highest point an object can move before it hits a wall. From there, I determine what the scale would be of the object from its furthest or highest possible point. And that would give me 2 Y values and 2 scale values. And with that, if you have 2 points, you can create a graph and a formula. And so what happens is that formula gets applied to every object scale at all times. So in this example we have on the left here, the formula is 0.000696378830084 multiplied by y, i.e. how high or low it is on the screen, plus a correctional value. And so using that information, we can affect all instances of an object's speed based on its faked depth, because objects closer to a view appear to move faster and slower the further away they are. So speed equals your default speed multiplied by your scale divided by 1. And this further sells the illusion of depth. So at the top here, we'll see this is what the game looks like just in the engine as I'm coding. Everything's a scale of 1, but then as soon as I run the game, the post calculations shrinks or scales objects up depending on how high they or low they are on the screen. So those tomatoes are getting smaller, these ones are getting larger. You add a shadow and bada bing, bada boom, you're done. You fake 3D. That's how that was done. So next I want to talk about the collaboration process. And this time around, I wanted to give the artists more say and ownership in the levels they're creating, partly inspired by watching the Psycho Odyssey documentary. When the artists knew what level they wanted to make, I'd sit down with them and hash out what we'd be making together, including props, interactions, mechanics. So it was a lot of like, is it possible to include this element? Like, or what if a player could do this instead? And I'm using the example of that is like Frankie's the dance level in which the artist was like, oh, can we add spotlights? I'm like, oh yeah, I'll code those in. And she was like, oh, can we move where the spotlights are in the world so they're not covering up your hands? I was like, yeah, we can add depth there. And so I'm going to use also the computer level by Ragnarok's Edge, in which the majority of ideas were his. And I was mostly there to like assemble and guide it and sort of like find compromises, like, oh, I can't code that, but we can do it this way instead. And mostly I just want to show off the amount of art we had per level, which is a ton, which is why we had so many artists, but it worked out okay. And with that, that's my portion of the presentation. So I'll be handing over the reins to LKB. Thank you very much. Let me stop sharing.
No, don't stop sharing.
No! Okay.
You're the one with the presentation. I was just going to keep... It's my...
Okay.
Thank you. My slides are part of your presentation. So, pop forward. Okay. So we had 1.5 million ideas. I don't know how well you can read this, but like really the first several days were just like ideating repeatedly over and over again, just like tons and tons of stuff. So this was just a spreadsheet document that we had that was just pure like level ideas. And I think there's like, I don't know, definitely more than 100, but I don't know how many. So we just like had these, we actually had just like this incredibly unorganized, just regular Google Doc with like a bunch of stuff in it. And it was like, okay, let's break this out into a spreadsheet and sort them out a little bit. And we used like 10 of these. We like didn't use most of these, but it was fun to like ideate, and I feel like it kind of is part of the game jam process of just like you start with like a huge mass and then you just kind of winnow things down. Next slide. So narrative structure I could talk about for a long time. Our original idea, you can kind of see I did this little diagram on the left where the original concept was that the main character, the player, would have multiple metamorphoses. Hi Sophie. As the game went on, so you would start as a little larva mascot, and then you become like a middle stage mascot with like slightly more developed features, and then finally, based on your choices, the end mascot would be a different design, a different character with different physical features based on. Sorry, my cat's getting in my face. Based on what you chose to do. You can't read it too great, but there was a secret ending that we really wanted to build in at one point, where you just tank every single level as bad as possible, and you just turn into a worm and just completely fail. But obviously, that takes a lot of stuff. We had this idea that you would be getting different levels based on your choices. That just wasn't going to happen. So we ended up with this thing that I think is a little bit more interesting, with these double objective levels where you're trying to do two things at once, except for the bongos, you're just trying to do one thing there. So that was a little bit more difficult to build structurally. And I think if we had like 3 months, we could have done some really interesting things with it. But as a game jam and as like a sketch of the concepts, I think it turned out pretty cool. I think both of these ideas are rich to build off of, but you need a lot more time to do that. Can I get the next slide? Okay, so this is the thing that I really wish that we could have implemented, the thing that I missed the most, which was these tiny home levels, just these little kind of downtime bits between like the main levels. So these would be the just like the evening before you go to sleep. I wanted these partly to sell the sense of the smoke box being oppressive. You don't really get that with what we have, aside from the fact that you're just doing work all the time. It's just you're under the blanket. So I want to read. You can't read it, I'm sure, on the presentation, but on the fish, the aquarium, it says, "Note: by feeding this fish, you contractually agree that the smoke box has given you a fulfilling home experience, and waive your right to any legal action against the smoke box or its subsidiary, the U.S. government." So these would be just like really quick, like 1 minute, 30-second levels where you do just like shake some fish food into your fishbowl, and then like pull the covers up over your weird body. And it would just kind of sell like how bleak the character's life is. We did not have time to do that, but it's the one thing that I would implement if we had the time. And I think that's it. I think I could answer a million questions. I could talk about narrative structure for a long time, but that's what I got. So let's move on.
Punkrock?
All right. Yeah, let me share my screen. All right, I'm gonna sound check because my slides have sound, so we're gonna see. Can we hear that?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. All right, cool. So I'm just gonna present really quickly on a few of the standout tracks, the ones I'm most proud of, because they kind of did pop off, as the kids say. The first one I'm going to talk about is Bruised Egos, the one for the Bruised Egos level. I've made a lot of music like this before, but I had a surprising amount of difficulty making this one because it was I needed to strike the balance of like fighting game where it's not like a high stakes boss battle or anything, but it was still, you know, made you want to feel like there's some kind of risk. So I went back to my roots. Got some classic sounds. We got Earthbound, an N64 Mystical Ninja. We got Sonic the Hedgehog 2, bunch of fun instruments. And the first thing I did was I loaded up the orchestra stab sound. Sounds like that. And then I tried noodling around. I messed around on the piano a little bit, trying to figure out a good melody. And I was like, that's so good. Wait, that's already something. That's Mortal Kombat. And that is IP that I cannot use. So I continued for the next 2 hours noodling around trying to find sounds that worked until I got, which I thought was really catchy. If the music's more quiet, I'll turn my mic down. And maybe y'all can turn me up, I guess. The other part. For the other player. It's kind of like there's two people going. And once I got those, it was smooth sailing for Bruised Egos. All I had to do was, put in the drums, the bass, everything else. The orchestra stab, of course. Next up, the Rebel theme from the Kaiju level. This was actually one of my favorite things that I got to do because I got to do it with my band. If you don't remember, this is what it looks like when you're becoming ferociously hit by stomping on the Smoke Box headquarters. First song my band's gotten to record since we're kind of new. I just laid down my part on the guitar. My bassist came over and recorded his part. That 6 solo is from our lead guitarist. Drummer was on vacation, so I did my best to put the drums in as he plays them in that song. And we're super happy that we were able to be part of this as a group. And we will hopefully do something again with Robot Party. Last one I'm going to talk about is You Expected a Great Taste. Probably the one that everyone remembers. I think that this song, this track, was only made possible because of this. that was the practice round for making You Expected a Great Taste. It wasn't on the album, but I'm so happy that I did it because I got the experience of being able to make that kind of like dancey club music. And you know, I have this little philosophy that everything is practice and practice leads to discovery and discovery leads to everything, and wow, it's so cool and circular.
Is this a song?
Is it a song? It is a song. Play is super important. I love that idea.
Oh, bongo solo.
If you remember this moment,
It's like bum 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 bum.
that is exactly how it goes. What was the mysterious melody? It was my idea for the Smoke Box jingle, because every good corporation needs a jingle, but it can't sound too much like a ringtone. So after a lot of attempts, that's what I got. Yeah, cute. It's in 4 different levels, including the bongos level. The other ones, sandwich, or I'm gonna show. That's the main one. It comes in full play in the sandwich level. It's also definitely in the club level. And when you get what I think is the bad ending, when you get the CEO ending, it's in a minor key. Very, very spooky, very fun. I had a great time hiding it in the different levels. And that's all.
Cool.
I think it's time for questions.
We do not have time. We are over.
Oh, cool. Never mind then. Farewell.
Just to remind everyone, you have the Google form. So if you want to ask questions of any developer, you can submit as many as you like. It's not an issue. Thank you for being patient, guys. Yeah, we had a feeling we weren't going to get the questions, and that's fine. All right. Thank you, everyone. Next, we have a video presentation from Zoql. It's going to be grill marks. Give me 1 second to open it up.
Test.
Let me share my screen. And you guys just let me know how the levels are when I hit play.
Test, test, test. Test, test. Can everyone hear me? Nice. Hello, everyone. I'm Zoql, and I made grill marks together with Meebid. Alright, so when I first decided to do a sort of card game version of Overcooked, it took me a bit to figure out how to do asymmetry, because unique characters and abilities are things I really enjoy. My initial instinct was to make 4 different roles that each had like a different little minigame or game mechanic to produce the resources, but I quickly shot that down because that would have taken a lot of time and work to develop and balance, and yeah, I don't have time for that. So I decided to simplify things down and have all the players build resources to any station they wanted using the same card play mechanic, and then I changed the roles to personality types. The change to personality types was great because it guided the different effects and playstyles for each deck. So, mechanically, the 4 employees can be split into 2 pairs of opposites. We have the procrastinator, who wants their cards played last, the overachiever, who wants their cards played first, the loner, who wants to stick to their own little corner, and the togetherman, or the new guy, who works better with other characters. These opposites add some tension and more chaos, but still allows players to make cool plays. For example, the procrastinator has a movement card that lets them move a previously played card into the exact position they want, which is the top of the pile. But they have to remember which of the 5 piles that specific card was. So yeah, part of my design goals was to create situations where players can make funny mistakes versus the game just randomly punishing you. So I gave each character at least one of what I like to call the oops card. Oops cards are fun because they keep players from going autopilot and also get them to pay more attention to what the other players are doing. So, for example, Mandy has a card that could wipe out 3 cards from the pile if there's no V card. So either V needs to play onto the pile where that card is, or Mandy needs to put this card where a V card is. Bubby has a card that straight up removes the next card, so he either needs to play that onto a finished pile where nobody else would, like, people would stop playing there, or at least remember to jump onto that grenade later with his weak cards, because Bubby's got the weakest cards. My personal favorite oops card is this card here, BJ's Fire Hazard. So if BJ plays this onto Meat or Smoke, he catches fire and all of his cards are destroyed. It's a fun little nod to his secret ability. Speaking of characters, I really like how all the voice acting came out. It was challenging working on voice acting since it kind of threw my timetables off a little. I had to snipe voice actors from the Team Finder thread pretty early, and that was like before I had drawn designs for the characters and stuff. But then, like, since I locked them in, I still wanted to give them something to work with, so I had to think about voice lines a lot earlier than I had planned. It worked out in the end, but I definitely feel like I could have been more efficient about that whole process. One little tidbit, the employees all have a character flaw, but I don't think V's came through very well. She's supposed to be a little annoying, but she ended up being very likable. Looking back, maybe I should have added a quack after all of her lines. Maybe. As for the visuals, the character designs, I never know where to start with these, and talking about it could take a while. So, if you have any specific questions about my inspirations, feel free to ask, and I will answer as soon as I can. So yeah, when I handed the game design off to Meebid, we had a few different directions to take it. The game itself was built to scale in player count, so it was possible to just do the solo mode, but to help with onboarding, since there are less cards to like learn initially, and because it's more chaotic and fun with more players, we decided to have the other characters controlled by the computer. So Meebid sent me these tables that show how the AI determines what cards to play and where to play them. So there's this weight value that's attached to each pile, and as cards are played there and whatever cards are on top, that weight will change. And the AI will likely play on a pile that has the highest weight. So you can see here, these are the different factors, the different things they think about, and then whatever card that they're going to play next, they consider like things like other characters, what else is in that pile, and so on. I believe this system was also used to for when the AI suggests what pile for the player to play in, because it does that. That's what the little blinky thing is. There's also stuff like AI memory, where the AI will try to remember cards that have been played, but they've been built so that their memory of the most recently played cards are strongest, and they can forget like older cards. A little random noise was added there as well to make the memory a little fuzzy, you know, just like real life. The AI was also tied to the timer initially. As the timer counts down, the AI would play faster, there'd be a higher chance of misplays. But we adjusted this after playtesting it a little bit and then seeing wujak stream the game. We figured that the AI was playing much too quickly, since even a new player was able to finish playing all their cards with like 20-30 seconds left on the clock, which isn't accurate to how it goes in a real game. So we only did that speed up panic mode. We tied that to certain events, and then outside of that, we had them play at like a steady, slower rate. And we even had the AI wait a few seconds before suggesting what pile the player should play to. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about cut content. I usually don't have much cut content for these jams, since it's just like I don't work on it because I decide I don't have time for it. But I do actually have a boss that I did cut. So before I figured out G.R.A.B's design, who I really wanted to put in the game, I was working on Chipp. I never really finalized his effects, but it bounced between building up a ton of chips by the end of the game, or needing a certain number of chips at the end of each round, but it all just felt too similar to the Pitmaster and Taxis, and it wasn't unique. So once I came up with the idea for G.R.A.B, that G.R.A.B could be a boss that tries to be supportive, but messes things up without meaning to, I abandoned Chipp. I do have a little doodle of a possible Chipp redesign. I drew him a little bit, so that's what he could have looked like, potentially. For stuff I didn't have time for, I didn't have time for like an ending. I mean, there is a secret ending, but it's really just a black screen with a few lines of text. The idea I had was I at least wanted to design the current Smoke Box mascot, which would have been Zoql himself. Kind of like Colonel Sanders, he would have like given up on designing mascots and been like I'll do it myself, I also didn't get to do music. It would have been cool to have a song, 2-minute song, to work as the 2-minute timer. I had planned to hit up an old Flash game that I used to mess around with a lot, Newgrounds game called Punkomatic 2, but I spent like 20 minutes messing around with riffs, and I was like, yeah, I don't have time for this. But yeah, so what's next? So I don't really advertise this much, but I do go back and update my older Game Jam games. Just the PDFs and the online versions. I can't really do the digital versions, that's Meebid's thing. But yeah, I do go back and update those. I've actually already gone back and adjusted the wording on some of the card effects for grill marks, because I didn't realize that I wrote them down the opposite of the way they work. So like these cards here, it's supposed to be played last, and then so this card says like move it to the bottom is what I imagine, but like that's not how it works when you play it in real life. The last played card is going to be on top, so yeah. But yeah, speaking of which, if you want to print out the game, the PDF is on the game page. If you already printed it or downloaded it, make sure there's like a version 1.1 update you can print out and update those cards. So yeah, let's see. After, I'm probably going to revisit Grill Marks again. Might be a bit. Gonna want to take a break, but I have a few ideas for like a new event, maybe a new boss. So that's something to look forward to. I'm also thinking about making the timer music after all. So when you're playing in real life, you can just turn that on and use that as the timer. Put it on YouTube or something. And then I think it would be cool, like, if I do the timer music, all these voice clips that I have, just like sprinkling those in. So you can also have the boss yelling at you. Yeah, that'd be cool. But yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about. If you have any questions about Grill Marks or any of the other games or something, feel free to ask. I'll answer them somehow. Special thanks to MeBid for working with me each year. Special thanks to all the voice actors that help bring these characters to life. Ickety Acty Oop, Cats Please, Legally Boopy, Jojo. It was really fun working with all of them, hearing all their takes. They did a really good job. And shout out to the Board Game Club. Please swing by if you ever you have time. I know it's a weird time, but that's because we all live in completely different corners of the world. Yeah, we have fun. But yeah, that's all. Thanks for playing my game. It's always fun to do these game jams. It feels so rewarding. Yeah, so I hope to see you all again next year. Bye-bye.
Hey, thank you for that. That was Zoql. Now, next one. Oh, I'm really excited about. We got Heartwood, presented by Abopo, Handstand, HyakuRiki? I messed that up. I'm sorry. So that's 3 people. Might need help from other people to get them up on stage. Okay, you're on top of that then. We got one.
Hello?
Hello. Got 2. One to go. I know, Abopo, we can see it. I can see your hand raised. Aha! It worked. Okay, guys. Can you all speak just to make sure your levels are okay?
Hello?
Testing.
You sound good. Abopo? Okay, if you're talking, we can't hear you right now. You might have to go into your Discord sound settings to make sure your audio source hasn't been rerouted to a different input. Fortunately, if you're talking, we still can't hear you. Just to confirm that you're using the Discord app and not the browser. Settings seem to be picking up your mic using the app. Now, the same thing happened to me this morning. I had to reset my whole computer. Yeah, you're not muted on my end. Sorry about this, folks. Just Discord being Discord. I think the only way to fix this is if we all meet in person next year. Guys, are we going to London next year? Okay, there's Abopo again. Okay, Balbod has a history in London.
Hello?
Yes! Okay, all right.
Got there.
Cool, I'm going to mute
We got
myself,
there.
and as soon as you guys start the presentation, I will set the timer.
Okay, let me share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Good for me.
Okay, and then does it still work in full screen?
Yep.
Looks like it. All right, cool. Okay, hello everybody. I'm back again, this time with more members of the Baguni team joining me. We made Heartwood this year. So the Baguni team is me, Abopo, Handstand, who is here with me, HyakuRiki, who's here with me, Lanceolate does the music, and Yazchu sometimes is here. He hangs out for moral support, playtesting, and occasionally writing. So this year, to start with like sort of our design and inspirations, how we came up with the idea for Heartwood, we were trying to imagine like what truly would appeal to millennials, and how can we like shill a product without seeming cringe? Because in our mind, any sort of like in real life, if we had some sort of like game or video and it turned out to just sort of be a company trying to shill a project, it would not like work as an actual advertisement, because we just wouldn't like it. And so some inspirations, we saw that creativity and individuality are generally well received by like, I don't know, the internet as a whole. See, for example, Arby's social media campaigns. So they had like one where they would like just make cool little like anime and game pictures out of Arby boxes, and they had one where they people would send in a picture and they would make a sandwich out of it. Those are pretty well received. And so we thought like a game that was about creating things and displaying that to other people would like resonate well with millennials, as it like being a genuine game about creating something, and less about like directly promoting the product, and more about like that as like a background thing. Some direct inspirations, because that's always a question. Different Strokes is a game that my friend worked on. It's basically a game where you like draw something, and there's like an infinite scrolling art museum, and you can look at other people's art, take it and edit it yourself, and then that'll go into the infinite void of art. It's really cool. And the Ghost Town Pumpkin Festival, which is like sort of like this game where you get to carve pumpkins, and those pumpkins show up around a little town that you can see. And then just sort of this community as a whole really like incentivizes and applauds like putting yourself out there and just making something, regardless of like the full quality. It's accepted and applauded. And we thought a game like Heartwood would be very well received by this community. So I saw a lot of people wondering like how the programming works, and so I thought I'd go into that. How does all this stuff works? The jointing is like pretty straightforward, luckily, due to like Unity's very straightforward parent-child system. So as long as you make stuff a child of the above object, all rotations and movements are tracked and just kept together. So that was pretty simple. Most of the work went into making it look nice. So like the little like glue blobs that showed where you're connecting, and the invisible piece that showed what the resulting connection would look like. That's where most of that work came from. The slicing, this is the tricky one. So just to not go super in-depth and complicated, basically you get a plane, which gives you like an infinite spot where you have one side and a different, like a positive side and a negative side. You take all the mesh data, the verts and triangles, and find out which ones are on the positive side and which ones are on the negative side. When all of the verts of a triangle are on one side, it's easy. You just, okay, cool, put it over there. The tricky part is when like the triangle is on the plane. And in order to solve that, you need to basically make new triangles to make each half of the original triangle. And basically the way it works is you just cast a ray from each vert to each other vert, and when it hits the plane, you make a new vert, and then that's your new triangle. And so it ends up being this sort of triangle thingy. And then you put all of them on one side and the other ones on the other side. And that splits your models in half. There you go. So this was my attempt that I basically wrote myself. It works slicing wise, but the UVs get messed up. And like I had written a function to fix the UVs, but it just simply wasn't working. And so I didn't want to put any more time into it. I wanted to work more on the game. And so I found Mesh Slicer Free by Hans, shout out to him, which worked very well until we started adding more complex pieces. And it turns out like all the other tools that I found have these same sort of restrictions, which are like overlapping triangles, and like if you cut directly on top of a vertice, it doesn't know what to do. And so to talk about how we figured out our models to work better with the thing and try to avoid the errors coming up, I'll pass it over to Handstand.
Hi. So just, I guess, like a super quick background. I'm a software dev in real life. I have no like art background. So all this stuff is just kind of things I learned fumbling around, trying to figure it out. The major issue with that slicing tool was we couldn't have any meshes inside other meshes. And so the last years, I kind of had just been extruding a cube into a shape that looked like something. And this was, unfortunately, the first year where I tried using multiple meshes, which was the first year where I wasn't allowed to do that. So to solve that, there's this tool called the Bool tool, which just kind of combines models together. So up at the top is the dinosaur, and you can see all the boxes around each of the meshes. But then the lower two are internal shots from like inside the dinosaur's body. Those are the legs and the neck up there. And this tool on the right, you can kind of see it just merges the meshes. makes new verts and faces out of where they would intersect. Turned out to be pretty simple once I found it. Yep. A happy accident about it was it slimmed down the models quite a bit. It didn't really matter for this game a whole lot. None of our models were that big, but just in the future, I thought it was something cool, an easy way to reduce verts for the most part. This reduced by about like 10 to 20% per model, I think. Next slide. Except for when the models were super simple. So the pretzel had salt on it, and the salt were literally cubes, which are only 8 verts. So combining those and making a whole bunch of new faces where those cubes intersect kind of ballooned the verts out. So I guess trial and error.
Okay. All right. So I'll continue in the last tool, painting. So I did initially implement like literally painting onto the models, where you'd have like a paintbrush and be able to like, paint like lines and things. But it was a pain. Like it just took a long time to paint each piece. Like if you wanted one piece to all be one color, it took forever, and like it didn't really add enough. And when the pieces were all put together, it would be hard to like select specific pieces to paint when they're already stuck together. So instead, I just went simple. I made a bunch of preset materials, preset colors, and so like you just pick a color, you click an object, it makes it that color, and that made it a lot cleaner and simpler to use. And then probably the other like most difficult, tricky part was saving these models, because we wanted them to be able to be uploaded and then restored on everybody's computers. I thought that, oh, easy, it's Unity, I'll just make them a prefab, because that's how Unity works. No, prefabs are exclusive to editor mode. Once you build the game, Unity doesn't let you make prefabs anymore. So instead, as you can see here on the right, I had to basically like manually save every single point of data within every single model. So all the mesh data, all the position, rotations, materials, number of cuts of each piece of wood that you added to your model, and held that all in like a submission data. And that was saved to a JSON file that could it's a very small file, just text, so it could very easily be uploaded and received to the server, which HyakuRiki will now talk about.
Hey, so I guess every year I suggest that we make an MMO because I think it's funny to suggest that. Obviously, it's a terrible idea for a lot of reasons, mostly because we don't have time for it. But we thought it would be kind of cool to do something interactive, especially because we're doing an art game. So yeah, that's where we came up with the gallery, which is pretty much what I exclusively worked on. Go to the next slide. So Kevin, sorry, Abopo.
It's fine.
All right. I already explained the JSON data format. We need to take that data and put it in the server, and that requires usually 4 operations, which are called CRUD. And every single time you have a lecture by anybody who knows anything about SQL or database management is probably going to make the joke I made at the top of this slide, and they all probably hate it as much as I do. So create, read, update, and delete. Creating is creating the data on the server, then reading the data from the server, updating the server data on the server, and then deleting it. We didn't really care about updating or deleting. We could have done a thing where you could modify existing submissions, but whatever. We didn't do it. And then deleting, we didn't. You know, it was short-lived. Probably people wouldn't care too much about deleting it. So create and read is what we're worried about. One thing that I probably should have done for this project is ask Kevin Abopo. What? I'm just doxing you, whatever. What the data we were sending was. I just never asked him that. I was pretty busy and I just didn't even think about it. And also, for my job, I happen to be doing this exact thing for my job, user uploaded content. So I just did what I did for my job and applied it to this game. I used Azure because my job uses Azure. We used SQL to store records of all of the data, records that the data exists, basically. So that's this screenshot here, the white screenshot. That's just a screenshot of our SQL data. For the actual file, I used blob.
Whoa.
Hello?
Yep.
Hello?
Hold on.
We good? All right.
Where did
yeah,
I?
we're
Where
good.
Yeah,
did
you
I
need to
stop?
reshare your screen. I paused.
Okay. Okie doke.
Was that?
There it is.
Okay.
There
All
it
right.
is.
So I used blob storage to actually store that JSON data. I wrote a REST API in .NET. That's that dark screenshot. This is just an example of a call to get all of the projects in the list, all of them. And then the one below that is to get a specific file. So when you load into the gallery, we grab all the information about the submissions without actually grabbing the submissions themselves. We randomize it, we pick 6, and then I grab those 6 to download the JSON from the blob storage and display them. And then just a fun little side note, I crashed Google Docs like 3 times trying to copy the data, the JSON data from one of my submissions into the text box so I could show you what it looked like. But I didn't really need to do that because Kevin showed you, Bobo showed you the data as it,
Right.
as it
Yeah.
is organized.
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's pretty much it.
All right, and then we just have this last slide of little like behind the scenes. You only in this game you only get to see things from extremely tight camera angles. And so here's like the little like judging and city scene, the car at the drive-through, and then like the smoke box close up and the flag. And then I guess you guys can do some questions if we have any time for it.
Yeah, you got time for one more question.
And then I also have the gallery up, so we can look at the gallery while questions come in.
Very clever use of missing DSD, by the way.
Yeah, I had that idea really early on.
I was a little sad that it didn't get shown on stream, but the music cuts out when you look at it.
Yeah, like you can look at them close, and if the music was playing now, if you look at it, the music cuts.
Yeah, it's just silence.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess we have one question.
Yeah, yeah.
Would we consider doing anything else with it? Maybe. I had kind of a crazy idea of like making a. This is just something I thought on my own. I haven't brought this up to anybody, but making like a roguelike sculpting game where you get like randomly assigned like judging requirements and like pieces, and then you have to come up with an idea that will meet those requirements to pass the stage, kind of thing. And maybe like your tools are maybe randomized or something like that. Wouldn't that be sick? So yeah, I don't know. That's a cool idea, I think. That's all I got.
We briefly tried to work on our jam from 2 years ago, but we didn't really continue with that.
Yeah, we think expanding on Chrome Echoes, the racing game we did 2 years ago, would be really cool and really easy. Oh my god, I love this smoke box sign that Crazed made. It's one of my favorite ones.
Cool.
Yeah, and when this is over, we're going to like shut down the server, but upload all of the pieces like locally into the game file, so they'll just be preserved that way. You won't be able to upload anymore, but the ones that have been made will be able to be found and looked at.
I suppose I'd throw out one warning. The nice thing about Azure is that you can get like a free month and $200 worth of service. But then after that, costs a little bit.
All right. All right.
All
Thank
right.
you guys
Thanks,
so much.
everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, don't forget to stop sharing before you
Yep.
take off.
Will do.
There
Yep.
you go.
And
Thank
then
you so
leave
much.
the stage.
Alrighty. Guess who we've got next? It's Balbod with Chipp's Crash Course. Ooh, right up here.
Hey, that works straight away?
Yeah, that's magic.
Nice.
What? Ooh, okay. I'm going to mute myself, and as soon as you start your presentation, I'll start the timer.
Okay. Is that visible to everyone?
Yep.
Cool. So, to start off with, I went for the obvious route of just copy someone else's game, and I thought, what is the absolute best fast food tie-over game possible? Obviously, it's Pepsi Man, the greatest game of all time. If people don't know what Pepsi Man is, it's this Japanese mascot that for some reason they thought this will sell Pepsi. It's this weird eyeless creature with a blow-up doll mouth that always gets hurt whenever it runs around. I'm not sure what they're thinking, but they made this game where you run around town giving people Pepsi. And it's a weird thing in the adverts that he always gets hurt. I'm not sure why, but he's kind of terrible at his job, and I thought, I'll just copy this and make it about G.R.A.B. So you'd be running around town just playing it normally, but every time you fail and get hurt, you'd be kind of questioning what am I? How am I this sentient straw? Why am I so obsessed with giving everyone barbecue? But in the end, I decided it wasn't a good route to go through, so got put in the trash. Instead, I decided to do what game devs call following the fun. For people who aren't too familiar with game design stuff, that's pretty much just the way that game designers feel really smart, and it's very common sense of just saying, if this is working, do more of it. If it's not, stop doing it. So the first thing was to change the main character. It didn't feel right that you're on rails and you're running. Felt as if you should be able to stop at any time. Why can you not stop when you're running? Why can you not just turn down a street? So switched out for a car. All of a sudden, felt fine. Exact same game. It could actually be more restrictive because you could get rid of the sliding and jumping. The second thing was, the most fun part of the game was when you were failing. If you were going at high speeds, losing control, driving into a crowd, that felt way better than avoiding everyone. So that became the focus of the game now. So the big issue here was what speed to make the car. If it's too slow, it was a nightmare. I'm sure people played the game and at the beginning were just immediately is there a way to speed up? This is awful. But then when you get too fast, it's uncontrollable. It doesn't feel like you have any input. You don't have any say over what's happening. You're just flying all over the place. The problem is the speed in the middle that's good is different for different people. If you have maybe slower reaction times, or you're not good at planning ahead and seeing what's coming up towards you, or even feel get really motion sick at high speeds, the actual sweet spot's going to be really bad. So balancing it was a bit of a nightmare. What I came up with was this weird method where wherever Chipp goes, not G.R.A.B, wherever Chipp goes, there's this prop cleaner behind him. And so if he hits something, his sensitivity and the speed he's traveling both increase. But if he misses it, the prop cleaner will hit it and the speed and sensitivity will decrease. And then I could play with the values to get a nice balance. I decided on 1 in 3 objects is probably a good position to be in, because then you're always on the verge of losing control, but never fully losing control. You can still guide your way into objects. So I made it so every time you hit something, it goes up by a value of 2. Every time you miss something, it goes down by a value of 1. So as long as you got that 1 in 3, you should maintain your speed. If you're going slower than that, it's going to be really easy to hit things and speed up. And if you're going faster than that, it's going to slow you down. Doesn't matter what speed it is, you'll always get balanced at 1 in 3 objects being hit. But of course, with all good ideas, that also goes in the trash. For the final level, I completely threw it out. I decided to just make it so you keep gaining speed rapidly, but that also leads to the problem I was trying to avoid of you lose control. So for the final level, I just made it's on a timer. So you will lose control, it'll be fun for a little bit, and then it'll get really tedious, but hopefully it won't last more than 2 minutes or however long the song lasted. The next thing was optimization. I knew I wouldn't have a chance to really optimize this and go back. I joined the jam really, really late. So I think I only had 2 weeks to work on this thing. And the course would have to be long, especially if you can gain ridiculous speeds for it. And it was full of objects to smash, obviously. I think when I counted, most levels were just under 400 objects per level you can smash into, plus all of like the buildings, the scenery, the stuff for the cutscenes. Like, it was going to be a disaster, so I built it from the ground up to be as optimized as I can. I was going to say it's possible, but I'm very bad at optimization. So like every single smashable object is the same blueprint for the same logic, just an instance of it. And then a couple of variables change, like the model, the hitbox, and the sound it plays when you hit it. Oh, and the value. I did the same thing for materials. Everything in the game pretty much uses these 5 materials. Mostly these 3. So this one is just for color only, and then the variable is the color it uses. The 2-sided version of that is just for thin things like walls or these signs, because you can see the back faces of them. And then the transparent one is the same thing, but with transparency. This way, instead of having to call a new material for every single object, it just calls these 3, and then changes the variables on them. The cars and the people got different versions of this, because it was going to be a nightmare to place 100 cars and 100 people and then change the color on each one to make them look different. Instead, I made it so when you place it down, it randomizes the 3-vector color and then masks it. So for example, the wheels, the lights, things like this will stay, but the color will be applied to the mask and just change the color of the body of the car. On the people, it's like the hat, the skin color, and the shirt. Everyone has the same pants. Yeah, for audio, it was really, really late in the jam at this point. It was like the last thing I was doing. So I didn't have time to like just, summon someone like last year. I remember I got punkrockglock in last year with about 11 days to go before the deadline. I'm pretty off for that. But yeah, this time, same issue. I think this time was maybe 5 days to go, so I just went online and actually managed to find some really good royalty-free stuff that fit really perfectly. For the actual voice acting, it was a bit of a nightmare. I think it was maybe 3 days to go, and I hadn't started any of the cutscenes. So I just called my friend up, and we just kind of ad-libbed for 2 hours, which got cut down to about 4 minutes of usable stuff. Which is what's in the cutscene, full of terrible mic bops and everything like that. I also got someone from the Discord called Jojo who provides some amazing screams that were very Katamari. So watch out for them in game. And that is it. I do kind of want to make this into a full game. I know Shabello's sort of showed a lot of interest in doing the soundtrack for it and stuff as well. I've got a lot of ideas for it, I just need to actually get around to doing it. But yep, that's me. How are we doing for time?
Cool. You're at 7 minutes, 30 seconds, so you got plenty of time.
Okay, I was trying to go fast. I thought when I did the practice round, it was 15 minutes on the dot.
You went as fast as Chipp's car on the last level.
Okay, nice. Yeah, if there's any questions, then send them my way.
I will say that after I played the game on stream and I said, oh, this could probably be voiced by Matt Berry, and you had mentioned that it's more like the eagle from Danger 5. That's just stuck in my head. I can't forget it.
Yeah, that's a funny thing, because when you said that, it's like interesting, because I originally was trying to do Matt Berry's voice, but just cannot do that voice at all. So every time I tried, it just sounded like that eagle. So it's interesting you immediately went, oh, like, it'd be good if it was Matt Berry.
Yeah, a question from Abopo up there.
Oh, totally missed that. Is there a max speed set for the road sections? There isn't. There's a max speed on the end section, just because it was getting to the point where you were breaking things. But for the road sections, I think it should go indefinitely. There might be a speed where it stops updating the speedometer, but I think it should be fine. Like, the actual speed will keep increasing. I guess the limit would just be how many objects there are, because there's always this like solid end of those levels.
Now, at one point when I was playing your game, I threatened to avoid everything as best as possible, and it seemed like you weren't aware that could have been a possibility.
Yeah, like, everyone seems to do that. I noticed wujak, like, was interested in trying the same thing. And looking back, it would have been a great idea. I have like 2 different routes to go down. But it's something that didn't occur to me at the time for some reason. I was just like, everyone's going to drive into crowds of people and smash everything, right? Why would you choose any other option?
To break, because, you know, some players like to break games. I'm not going to name names, but, you know.
Yeah, it's like everyone, when they get Grand Theft Auto, for some reason, everyone tries driving with the correct rules and like stopping at lights and stuff for a little while. Right, cool. If there's no questions, I'll jump on the next guy.
Anything? Give people a few seconds. People are typing. Oh, I guess not. Cool.
That's an interesting one from Glock there.
Oh,
saying
understood.
also having like max property damage but 0 casualties. Could have different routes for that as well. But yeah, I didn't think about it.
That's a weird moral gray area. Yeah.
It's okay to destroy someone's house as long as you don't hurt them.
Oh, question from Limey.
Secret Newcastle level? No. I've had enough of Newcastle. I'm done. I've escaped.
All right. If that's it, thank you so very much. That was a lot of fun.
Cool. Stop sharing, and then do I just hit disconnect quietly? I'll leave the stage.
Yeah. Disconnect quietly. I think it would kick you out entirely. All right. Now with Chipp's Crash Course. Next up, we have a slideshow submission from Mimi Moonbeam, who isn't here today, so I will be handling that myself. Let me just load that up. Okay. Mimi, apologize in advance if I butcher anything, but I will try my best. And let's see if we can go full. I think I can go full screen on this one. Yeah. There we go. Okay. I'm here to present Hunger Strike on behalf of Mimi Moonbeam and the entire team. So Hunger Strike, the postmortem, I guess. So Team Moonbeam is Mimi Moonbeam, Athena is Trapped, Heroes Keep, Monster Shop, Cats Please, and Nikki Kiji. First of all, please enjoy the full-size versions of Monster Shop's amazing level intro arts. Level 1, Frankie goes to BBQ Wood. I love the grain on these. Adds so much character. Level 2, Squandrick and Roll. Level 3, Chippin' In. Not of it, yeah, it's just me. It's just me talking. Level 4, Bon Appetit. And it is fun to force Kyle into reading a bunch of puns. Level 5, Hagen's the Spotlight. Level 6, Pay Your Taxis. Level 7, Pitmaster Class. Level 8, Smoking Hot. I know Steve is meant to be like gruff, but he looks too darn cute here. Level 9, You Expected a Great Taste. Cool. Secondly, due to a bug, no one managed to find the secret DSD shop. So behold, a GIF of how to do it and what happens. Please note this doesn't have the audio, which includes Cats Please line of, huh, what's that? And a Nikki Kiji sound of disgust upon consumption of the chicken sandwich. We let that play a few times. Max HP lowered by 50. So cut content. The original plan for the game included the following, which had all had to be cut either for time or because of engine limitations. Bosses having multiple attacks or phases, weapons having 2 fire modes, air dashing, and more movement in general, more art scenes in the intro and ending, a stronger narrative presence. My hope next year is to have more time to work on something that includes some of these elements. Engine issues. So this year I decided to forego Unreal Engine and use something with built-in gameplay for the boomer shooter style I wanted. This turned out to be both a blessing and a disguise. It did come with ready-made shooting, movement, sprite animations, etc. However, it also had many limitations in regard to what was possible in such a short time frame. Additionally, the engine had a few bugs which I simply could not fix. Frowning face. Projectiles go through enemies or player if fired too close to them. HP pickups cannot heal above 100 HP. Sometimes the hitboxes on enemies are weird. Next year, I'll likely go back to Unreal Engine. Next time, things I learned from this year. Working as a team was way better, and having artists bring ideas to life is amazing. Agreed. I think using an engine I'm more comfortable with is generally better. Gotta scope down even more. It's hard, very hard to plan out a game for only 30 minutes. Agreed. Voice acting really added a lot, as did the custom art. Do that again. So yes, Team Moonbeam will be back next year. Possibly with some different team members depending on schedules, but very excited already. Thanks for reading from Mimi Moonbeam and Team Moonbeam. Cool. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much, Mimi. And you do get the award for the tightest presentation. We can all learn from Mimi right here. All right, so that leads us to the penultimate presentation by Zypher. If we could get you up here. Yeah, I see you. Aha.
Hello.
Hello.
Testing. Cool.
Yeah, let me turn up your volume a bit. Cool. I am going to mute myself, and when you start presenting, I'll start the timer.
All right. Wait, which button? Oh, share your screen. There we go. Pardon me. I'm ancient. Sure. Is that a screen? It is a screen. We did it. All right, cool. I'm gonna start. Let's try that. Oh, can you guys see the screen?
Yep, we're good.
All right, cool. Hi, I'm ZypherJ. I made the Modern Millennial Mascot SBUltra.exe program. I don't do anything for this channel. I'm just like a random chatter person. I'm not important. This is my first game and my first game jam. I have done a lot of software development, but I'm not an artist or an illustrator or a musician or a composer or a game developer, anything like that. So this was really just for fun and to like challenge myself and try to do the thing that all of you cool people do. So why am I presenting? I just wanted to get some notes and observations on my first rodeo out here and encourage other people who may not have done a game jam or something to give it a shot, because it was very, very doable and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing this game jam. So notes on the project. The goals and guiding principles that I set out before I did anything is number 1, finish the game. Nothing counts unless it's actually done. 2 is that it's okay if it's bad. This is all a learning experience. Making bad art is fun. Trust yourself and your preferences. Try not to just do things that are going to pander to Kyle or chat or, go for the easy applause lines. No scope creep. Only do the things that you set out at the start. Do not add more things. Do a little every day and finish a log. And finally, finish the game. So what do I think went well? Well, I finished it. It's done. It's all turned in. I like it a lot. I kept a really good log for myself. And I did do it almost every day, surprisingly easy, even though I was coming home from a long day of coding at work. It gave me a lot of energy, actually. Often found myself thinking about stuff I wanted to code up in the game at work, and successfully did not creep my scope, stuck to what I said I was going to do. To improve, the starting scope was way too big. I never got around to music or damage or anything. Everything in this game was a first draft. There was like no polishing, no play testing, and the enemy sprites were entirely too illegal. I really wanted them to come out like you had doodled on them in a magazine and then clipped it out and then it made its way in. I did not want Mr. Timberlake to actually be recognizable. I think we're all going to be okay as long as nobody tells him, and honestly, he probably wouldn't mind anyway. The game. So hooks that got me from the starting stream. Modern millennial sensibilities really nicely sets the tone and the audience for what the thing you want to make. I liked the food and mascots immediately jumped out as characters and weapons, like, Mega Man Robot Masters. You get to use their weapons afterward. Government Secrets was a fun overtone, undertone to lean into. Frozen Chicken immediately struck me as a sliding block puzzle, which made it in. And then the term ferociously hip, because nobody says this. It is deeply out of touch with the target audience of millennials, which is very funny. Which I sort of mashed into this actual sort of couple sentences of an idea. It's a game about a deeply misguided secret government AI that is trying to update some kind of mascot from the Smoke Box to be ferociously hip. Players get to choose one, the others are your bosses. Their weapons is trying to remind you of embarrassing things instead of, quote, hip things. And because it's all sort of from this LLM point of perspective for this AI, it has no idea what the actual data is. And so all of these mascots are going to come out with just ridiculous results because the program cannot conceive why, perhaps, all of these sentences and bits and concepts are keep popping up, which I think is fun. The game requirements here, 8 levels, 8 weapons, 8 bosses. You do not play the level of the character that you are playing as. Only one speaking character, the narrator, to keep it all super simple. Top-down shooter, kind of evoking Flash games, kind of millennial nostalgia there. It's allowed to be kind of crappy, and then mixed up with the sliding block puzzler too. Some hang-ups. I used Game Maker. This is my first time using Game Maker. This is a general graph of my enjoyment of Game Maker over time, and you can see eventually it goes down. I think this program is probably really good if you're relatively new to software development or you know what you're getting into with Game Maker. Real simple scripting, lots of good visuals, attaching the code to the visual object thing. It's got pretty good tutorials, and I mostly like the documentation. However, I found it really frustrating, having done nothing but like back-end code all my life here, because I just kept getting this increasing sense of, why can't I do this with this language? Why doesn't it have this nice thing that I want from it? It feels like a very right way to do it tool, where it wants you to do it one way, and if you want to do it a different way, it gets very upset with you. The IDE lacks a lot of modern niceties, like one-button refactoring and stuff. The IDE absolutely chugs when you have a lot of windows open, which I kept having happen if I'm just debugging something. And there is a surprise, I did not realize, $80 monthly subscription fee at the end to make your program an executable, which made me very upset. The artwork. It turns out making art's really hard. Even making bad art is really hard. And you need to scope your game around making the art. So how many players you want? The tile sets, the backgrounds. Keep that real limited, and remember that's taking time. I just used like pixel art paint and a little GIMP. I thought it would be quick to do it really bad. It was not quick to do it bad. And I have newfound respect for all the people who make really, really cool art that looks good in any reasonable amount of time. And then accessibility first. Cal got stuck a lot in my game, which I didn't expect. The start screen, he couldn't figure what button to press. The first screen, he couldn't remember which button fires. I didn't really have enough time to put all these prompts and things in the game, which is why next time it's definitely going to be baseline feature on par with like enemies and weapons and stuff. Wrapping up, just a quick run over these lessons. Do you code a lot in modern languages? Do you have a lot of prior coding experience? Game Maker's not bad, just remember they're going to charge you. I think it's probably pretty great for what you're doing if it's keeping it tightly scoped and stuff, but you might find this frustrating and limited. I personally want to try something different. Godot or Unity or friend recommended Bevy. Make sure you practice your tools and code beforehand. Know the kind of thing that you want to use to make your sprites and whatnot. Scale it down even more than you think you have to. I feel like for a one-person game, you should be shooting for like a one-screen game, something more arcadey, maybe like, I don't know, VN or something. And make sure you scope your assets in. Even bad assets take time. And I always think accessibility first. Teach your players how to play, and or don't, unless that's the point. I spent about 80 hours in total on this thing, probably a little bit more. Finished at 3 a.m. on the due date. My favorite weapon was the laser lava cake. I liked Squandrix level, and Jambone and Pitmaster's endings were my favorite. Alright, that's all I got.
Cool. We're at the 7 minutes 30, so any questions?
Tips for first-time game developers? Honestly, you'll probably like GameMaker. I think GameMaker seems like a really good tool. They have very good tutorials to help you kind of make a template and then alter it to get to your game. Definitely scope your assets. Again, repeat, those take time. Those are real. No matter how badly you think you can slap them together, you can't. They will eat your time. Any ideas to fight within adding scope rule? I don't know. Self-discipline. Anytime I thought about adding something new, I said out loud, no you don't. just don't do that. Just make the thing you said you were going to make. I really wanted to, as far as Team Finder for visual artists, or was the goal to work solo? The goal is to work solo, to gain an appreciation for what art is and what it takes. The goal was also to try and do that for music, to just try and make some bad music. Didn't have time for that. I might next time, now that I feel a bit more confident in my ability to finish something. Or to work with the team.
Any final questions? Yeah, it sucks that I'm gonna say it sucks that GameMaker has switched to that new model, $80 to make an executable. They mitigate it by allowing you to freely publish on their Opera GX channel, which is weird.
I don't understand how that works, and I was not able to figure it out at 3 a.m.
That's 100% fair.
I gave them my money, and I was mad about it, and now I'm not going to use their product again.
No, now you have a month to make all the games you can.
Exactly, yeah. Thank God making video games can't possibly take more than that.
Cool. If there's... This seems super... Yeah. Yeah, it's like, hey, you want to make executable $80, or you can put it on our website. Okay, last call for questions. Looks like that's it. Glad we could squeeze you in here.
Yeah, thank you so much for making room.
No problem. All right. So when you're ready, you can stop sharing screen and hop back into the audience.
All right, goodbye.
Thank you so much. Okay, we're at the end here. Oh, this is going to be a good one. Oh, Leo, hopping right up with BBQ Riderz.
Can you hear me?
Yep, absolutely. I'm going to mute myself and let you take over.
All right. All right, should be up.
Yep, it's good.
Right, so hi, I'm Leo from Team Highlight. The rest of the team is Rebello, Escaton, Loa, Lamb, Asper, Max, Index. Ali was also last year, but he wasn't able to participate. and we made BBQ Riderz. So last year we ended up with a pretty short game, and the gameplay was kind of rough. So we wanted to make something that focused on gameplay over story, and we wanted to get a prototype up and running as soon as possible, just to fine-tune the controls and the general experience. We also had way less programming support and a lot of artists on our game. So we wanted to kind of focus on content over mechanics. 2 years ago, I started working on a kart racing game for the Steel Love Game Jam. I quickly pivoted towards like an open world adventure game instead, but the idea stuck with me. So I been thinking about it for a couple of years, and I thought this year was like a really good fit for doing that. We wanted to kind of do like a wipe-up thing with like a very physics-driven gameplay, but kind of capture the aesthetics of F-Zero more, and like just general 2000s early PS2, late PS1 style licensed games. Here's some of the early concepts. Eskaden, Loa and Cibello, they did like the concepts and logo designs and everything. They started to shape the style we were going for pretty early. Here's some more of the concepts, like when we kind of figured out the style we were going for. I then took those rough designs that we had in the concepts for the vehicles, and I made like orthographics that we could do models for, and just to figure out kind of how they would look in engine. So for the PSX visuals, we did a couple of things to get the look. First is that during the modeling and texturing, we limit the poly count and the texture resolution. Then we give the texture a retro feel with dithering, color banding. There's a plugin called Pixelator for Substance Painter that's really good for this. Some people were asking about the CRT shader when the game was being played, and it comes down to a couple of things. So like the rendering is split into 2 layers. We have like an internal resolution, which is the same resolution as most PS1 games are playing at. Then we have like a screen resolution that simulates a CRT screen with the RGB color overlay. And that gives it kind of this, the specific look that we had. On top of that, we also have like a vertex wobble in the material. So like the models will kind of jump around a bit. Here's some early level stuff, like when we were planning them and figuring out the layouts. And like this is how it looks like in engine when I was working on it myself. There's a few things going on here. The big red blocks are the out of bounds triggers. The lines on the tracks are the AI splines that the AI uses to figure out where to be on the track. And it's not really visible, but there's also like checkpoint triggers all along that keep track of how far along you are and make sure that you respawn in the right location if you go out of bounds. We did everything in blueprints. The programmers that helped me out for the last couple of years were unavailable, and our new programmer, Max, he hadn't worked in Unreal before, so we just did everything in blueprints. And I'm sure some programmers are getting shivers down their spines, but for like a game jam, that's perfectly fine. Zabello and Lamb did an amazing job with the music as expected. But like the goal was to capture like that vibe, that like the late 90s arcade vibe. Each of the levels had kind of a specific thing they were going for, like the outrun or the red line or wipeout. So there was a lot of good variety. We also had like a lot of voice acting. I was pretty hands off with the voice acting. It was mostly Sepalo and Loa McLoa and Escaton that handled that part of it, but I'm really happy with how that all ended up. And Escaton did like an amazing job with the announcements. We also had like this filter over the voices that gave it kind of a more filtered sound. I think we maybe went a little bit too far on it because some people complained that they couldn't hear what was happening during the endings and stuff. But it did give it kind of a bit of like production value as well. We didn't really have a lot of cut content that we actually worked on, but we did have some plans and ideas that like we just scoped out with time. Like yeah, the hub thing was like we figured out pretty fast that like that's not like realistic. The UI reaction system was supposed to be a lot more like a little bit more dynamic, so that like when you passed enemies or when they passed you, when you boosted, you would get different types of reactions. But like we added it in pretty late, so we ended up having it a bit more randomized. Just that when you got close enough to someone, it would play a reaction. It would be sort of random. We wanted to do more assets, like give the Zeros Morse map kind of a more Zero Moses feeling with mechs and tanks and more military stuff, but we just didn't have the time to do it. The final map was also made like in the last week, and it wasn't quite as polished as the rest. So like it had some bugs, like the boss falling through the floor. We also wanted to do like a final lap music shift. Originally we had like 3 laps around each track, but that was just too much time on each track, so we cut it down to 2, and then like the like different music didn't really fit. But if you listen to the OST, which you can find on YouTube and Spotify, you'll hear kind of how that will play out, especially in like the final track. It's pretty cool. Yeah, so like my final thoughts is that we took a gamble with having a lot of characters and endings. We were hoping that people would like be curious how does that character, what kind of ending would they get, so they would download the game and play it themselves. And we did get a lot of rankings and downloads, so I think that worked out pretty well. But it also like stretched us thin in some ways. Early playtesting, like the main feedback I got was that it was way too hard, which was surprising to me because I was thinking about upping the difficulty constantly because I've been making the mechanics and had like a pretty good grasp on them. So it's just like it reminded me that it's really easy to get tunnel vision, and like we spent some time on the last weeks adjusting the controls. Like I don't think everyone gelled with them at the end either way, but like I think that's always going to be the case with a racing game. And we didn't really worry too much about following the rules, and like it wasn't until kind of late that we realized that like we didn't have the cold sandwich in, and the upgrades, like radical upgrades, weren't really super apparent. It's like there's hidden the hidden food in all the tracks, or like they were kind of too hidden, and the upgrade wasn't like super obvious, but it all worked out in the end. So yeah, thanks for listening. Just want to give a special thanks to all the playtesters and the voice cast, who were all amazing. That's all.
We're at 9 minutes 30, so we have plenty of time for questions if anyone has any. As we're typing out the questions, just want to thank you, Leo, for being so patient and being the closer.
No, it was really fun listening to everyone else. Have I ever made a racing game before this? No. But like I said, I was gonna do that for the Steel Love Game Jam. So I started, like that's why there was a vehicle in that game to begin with, because I started doing that. But like on day 3 or something, I realized that I wanted to do something a little different, but I kept the vehicle in. So I've been thinking about it for a while. I've always been looking for an excuse to do it, and like this year just seemed like a really good fit. How did you decide to draw the line of what was and wasn't okay shortcut to have in? Seems like there's a lot. So like originally the out of bounds was like way more punishing, and it was like too punishing. So I kind of eased off on it and gave it a little bit more space, and that meant that there like a bunch of shortcuts opened up, but it also meant that like you could sometimes go onto the track and it created other issues. But like it just came from playtesting and like figuring out like what feels like this could be a cool shortcut and stuff like that. So it was just as I played through the races like a million times, I started to figure it out. Did you have any other racing mechanic ideas that didn't make it in? No, we wanted to keep it pretty simple. Just make a basic racing game and just focus on that and make it fun. That was like the main drive. We were gonna have like free boosting, so you would collect like energy and you could boost at any time, but it just like it meant that like because of the handling and stuff, like it just made it really hard to make sure people didn't just fly off the track all the time. So having the boosts in specific places was more like having more control was better. Tell me how to hang with the game. Thank you. Did you have a tough time deciding which ways to stick to the PS1 limitation, when to use nice modern features? I mean, it's something I've been working on for like 4 years. It's like the first time I joined the game jam, I like made a JRPG where I started with a PS1 filter thing, and I've just been kind of figuring out over time, so like which of the features do I like, what kind of limitations am I not really a fan of. There is like one other, like I think the next step for me would be to cut out the modern lighting and like do vertex lighting and stuff like that. That's something I really want to explore, but it's a bit more complex, especially in Unreal Engine. So, but I want to try it out.
Yeah, I'd like to add that you really made it not feel like you were using Unreal Engine.
Well, thank you. That's a compliment in my books. But like I said, it's something that I've been kind of like I am a tech artist and like environment artist as a day job, so I'm very familiar with the engine. So like it's already my job to make it like look not like a basic Unreal Engine project. So like I have some like I have like 5 years of experience doing that, so that came pretty easy, just knowing like the shine, like how to get rid of that. And but like for example, we didn't use any normal maps in this project because like it didn't really work well with the textures we were working with. So it's just like figuring out like which part of the engine to use and which not. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Compliment to Balbod as well, who was using Unreal, but it does not feel like Unreal. It really does. Both your games really do feel like PS1 era appropriate games. Well, to both of you, I'll ask, like, with your knowledge of all this stuff, would you be willing to do a little presentation for the Robot Party?
On using Unreal?
Yeah. 2 years ago, I did one for Game Maker, and you don't have to answer now, but let me just plant the seed. If you ever wanted to teach other people how to use Unreal, I think there'd be a lot of people in this community who would love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, that could be fun. And yeah, I mean the CRT filter, it's been like I've been migrating it from each project for like this is the 4th year, so it's gotten like a little bit better each time. I think also I'd like to try making a game for this jam that's not like a PS1 thing, to show that I can do other stuff as well. Yes, the N64 era begins.
To answer Zypher's question, yes, it's up on YouTube. I'll have to share it later. Let me just make a note of that. It was. Okay, if there's no more questions, give it a sec. Oh, I guess that's it. Thank you so very much.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, everyone. That concludes the 2024 Robot Party Jam Postmortems. I want to thank everyone who tuned in here today, and those of you watching on YouTube. And also, thank you so much for all the presenters here. Those were amazing. It's fascinating hearing all about your design philosophies and every behind-the-scenes stories. Finally, a big thank you to the community as a whole and the mods today who helped Discord run as smoothly, quote unquote, as possible. It's always a losing battle, but we made it through. And I appreciate your help in here. This video will be uploaded later onto YouTube, so keep your eyes on Discord for that announcement. And with that, I wish everyone a good day and a good jam. Bye.